Here we go.
Here we go. Let's have a good show.
1B, stand by.
Yeah.
Yacht, stand.
Yeah,
Take it.
just get at midfield.
Okay,
Just go
take
right
it.
now.
Take
Go to
it.
camera 3.
Can
3.
you
Go to the gate.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Just like that.
I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, graphics 2 is going to be up for the first.
Okay.
Go right now. Go to camera 3. Go. Yep.
Can you
Go to the gate. Perfect. Just like that. No music.
I'm going to hand to Q. Sophie.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
On radio in the Canal Zone.
All right, guys, mic check.
Yep, go ready.
Okay, Ricky, mic.
Yep, I am ready.
Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Willie, mic check.
Yep, let's go.
1B, stand by.
And
Couple of minutes.
10,
1B, stand by. Couple of minutes.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Okay, and go for it, guys.
Panama days. Here we go, guys. All right. 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific time, and 7 p.m. Canal Zone time, guys. Happy out at the Balboa Yacht Club. Don't forget, guys, like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. But hey, we're happy to be here. Great show tonight. It's going to be excavation night and World Cup night, and of course, some great bochinche brought by our friend Ricky. So, Ricky, what's going on, man? Happy Friday. Are you muted? Check your. No, I don't hear him. So he's while he's playing with his audio. He's
Hello, everybody. There we are.
All right.
Oh, yeah, Will, I think we need to update this microphone's what it is. Well, welcome, everybody. Thank you. Like always, we always need to have a little glitch always in our show. Welcome, everybody, to the happy hour at the Balboa Yacht Club. As you know, Thursday night for all you high school kids, middle bar, happy hour at 6 p.m. 50-cent beer, 50-cent ceviche.
That's right.
We'll see you guys there. Kidding, guys. But we are a show and a podcast that's all about 100% about the Panama Canal and the Zonian community. Everything you need to know about us, about the canal, this is the place where you're going to get that information. And tonight is no different. So grab your drinks, your cups, your chalice, your mugs, whatever it is you like to toast to, the eighth wonder of the world. Let's get this show started.
Heck yeah.
And
man.
like always, this is a place where everybody knows your name. Salud.
Yes, indeed. Salute, everybody. And yeah, listen, guys. Like Ricky said, this is where we all get to hang out, and you know, it's always a special place because of the Canal Zone was a special place and is a special place. Will always be a special place in our hearts. But you know, it's a lot of fun to get to say hello to everybody and talk and whatnot, and reminisce and go back. But every 4 years you get this World Cup thing going on, and that's when you really have a lot of fun, because then you have this real camaraderie between the zone and Panama, right? Because you know it's great to see so many Zonians rooting for the team. I also, you know, will when we talk World Cup here in just a little while, I will mention some things about my opinions of EFY fans, but you know, it is a fun time. And so we're going to be doing a little bit of World Cup coverage every Friday for the next several weeks while the World Cup goes on. Hopefully Panama will be in that news for several weeks. We'll see.
Yes, Willie. And you're so good at this, and I'm kind of more of an NFL guy that I decided to bring the cavalry with me this time.
He
and
did.
I'm bringing
Firepower
on.
with him.
Yes, everybody. I'm bringing on my nephew from California, Paris Royal, the son of my great cousin, Paris Royal, and my great uncle, Paris Royal. So he'll be joining us tonight and helping me out, and him and Willie are going to be giving you guys the latest on soccer. But Willie, before we get there, some interesting facts happened. Some interesting stuff happened today.
Right.
Back in 1962,
Okay.
Willie. This is the week. It was actually June 13th, 1962, that Chiari and John F. Kennedy signed a bilateral agreement, Willie.
Right. In Panama, wasn't it?
In Panama. You know what? That's a good question.
I believe it was, because I've seen pictures of Kennedy arriving in Panama
Well, they did sign an agreement. So, yes, it could have been in Panama, because it all started with Fulo Linares' father, a good friend of us,
Right.
and ex-Kiwani Coates, Very good Kiwani coach, by the way. His dad, Mr. Linares, and Dean Rusk, which was the Secretary of State at the time, they started, and then you're right, they signed the agreement. But Willie, this was the agreement that led right to the 1964 flag riots. You know, this is the agreement where they decided, hey, we're gonna fly the flags together in a few designated civilian sites, and the high school was not one of them, by the way.
Right.
Well, anyway, that's for another day, Willie. We'll get into that one. Maybe we'll get David to help us out with that story because it's pretty good, actually. It's the 2 years before the big riots.
Well, and I got I'm really the worst with when it comes to names. But what's the lady's name that wrote the book on the '64 riots?
You're not the only one that's bad with names, man.
Oh, it starts with a T.
Tribaldos.
Yes.
Wendy Tribaldos. Wendy Tribaldos.
Yes,
Yep.
her and I have chatted, and she's going to join us.
Bring her on.
Oh, she's going to, but we said, why not do it, January 9th at the anniversary when it would, well, because it
How about 6 months before? Not just
no, because then it doesn't really have the same content to it. Oh, there we go. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so much. Listen, guys, that really helped us out a lot.
Salute.
And you will, and I hope you guys notice the difference on the show we were providing. But thank you very much. Thank you. Those donations help us out a lot.
So we're going to bring her on and talk about that because there's a lot of stories behind that. There's a lot of different narratives. We had my dad on this year in January because he was there, but not as a Canal Zone police officer. He was there as a U.S. Air Force media guy. He was filming it.
Video.
And it's always interesting. When Ricky and I, part of what we do, with this show, and certainly Dave Dahlstrom does a ton of it, right? But by doing this show, it really has. I can speak for myself and say that has really lit a fire in really going to the history of the Canal Zone, right? And really enjoying it and looking at
documented history.
Yes, exactly, man.
Not Fulano told me that Mengano said,
correct.
Fulano said.
And with the advent of AI now, research is actually, there's a lot more ways of doing it that you can be very successful at and find some amazing information. And that's why you come across these things now that are just, it's so much fun, and looking forward to every week finding out something new and the way
share it with our viewers.
Yeah, for sure, man. So
absolutely.
So let's say hello to a couple of folks there, and then we'll move right along on our K-pop.
Full house. I love it, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's talk to a few folks here. Jim and Diane, good to see you guys. Yeah, we are enjoying the FIFA games. There's some great games that we've had, some big upsets and whatnot. And I'll tell you something that I've seen really fun in the news a lot is how many fans from overseas are coming to the United States and even to Canada, and they're just blown away by this place, United States has certainly been a commercial success for upwards of 100 plus years, but even in 94, you didn't have, the Walmarts and the Buc-ee's and everything else that you have nowadays in this country. And you couple that with internet and everything else.
Arby's and
so people are
Golden Corral. These are the places that are making, they're making the highlights.
And then one last thing real quick, cheers to what would be the Zonians of the World Cup groups. And that has to be easily Scotland, right? And drying out Boston and drinking all their beer. Kind of sounds like our reunions at some
But you know what? Like our reunion, they always leave a donation for charity.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. But they drank Boston dry. At least
like the reunion in Tampa. So
cheers to the Scots.
Cheers to the Scots, and we are right there with you guys.
Yeah, they did just lose to Morocco here a few minutes ago, unfortunately. So,
Morocco's good though.
Morocco's a good team. I'm telling you. I have a feeling that and again, we're not going to get too much into soccer right now. Our guest will join us and cover all that stuff. But Brazil's getting ready to start their game against Haiti now, and that might be an ugly game for Haiti because Brazil's going to go in with a chip on their shoulder now. So, but anyhow, we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. Yeah, they need points for sure. Especially now that Morocco just won, they know that Morocco now has 4 points, and I'm wearing the England shirt. I always root for the Three Lions. That's always been the team that I root for.
Yeah.
The U.S. is doing fantastic now. They've moved on to the second round because worst case now they're going to finish second, which is doubtful. But all they need is a tie from the game against Czechia, their last game, and they'll win the group. But either way, the worst they can finish is second now, so they'll move on, which is great to see. And then it'll be tough when I go to see England Panama in a week from tomorrow. And I'm not going to go see the game live, but I'll go to a friend's who's British, and his wife is Zonian, so there'll be a lot of Panama fans and a lot of England fans there, and it'll be tough for me. I may have to switch,
Yeah.
depending on the outcome.
All
So,
right. Oh yeah. So I announced. Oh, no, we're not there
Yeah.
yet. We're almost there.
well, no, we are. That's a great cue to kick off our announcements then. But let's say hello to a couple other folks here. Bill, good to see you. Yeah, tonight's show's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk a little bit canal construction. We started. We're going to try and do this chronological from 1904 to 1914. It was a long project. There's a lot of different changes, things went on. So we're going to get through a couple of those there. Mark, good to see you. Good evening, everyone. Hopefully, you guys have gotten some pictures over to Mark for his new song that he's working on. He's looking at some zone pictures. If you haven't, go on, look him up on Facebook and see his posts, and you can send him some pics and stuff there. But good to see you, Mark. Happy Friday to you, brother. But yeah, let's go ahead and get some announcements going here.
SCN Television presents K Pasa. And now here's this evening's host, Army Sergeant Bob Foster.
Good evening and welcome to K Plaza. We've got two guests tonight. First Sergeant First Class Jim Webb.
So there we go. We'll just cut that short real quick and move real quick. But yes, a couple of short, quick announcements, and then we'll move things right along here because we do have a lot to cover tonight. But don't forget, guys, we are in June, and we're in late June now, right? And so reunion is around the corner.
Oh yeah, just past mid-June. Oh my God,
Yeah. We're getting into the tail end of the month, and then reunion is right around the corner. A little bit later this year, so you got another week, but don't forget, if you haven't already, get your plans taken care of. I don't know what the society's situation is right now as far as occupancy goes, but certainly reach out to them. I know they're always looking for volunteers, so if you can, make sure you reach out and just give a couple of hours. Spend a couple of hours sitting there at one of the desks, signing somebody up or checking some, collecting tickets or something. And
yeah, they'll let you know. They got plenty places that you can help out.
But other than that, class reunions, don't forget, check your class reunions to see what you got going on Friday night, because that's when all the reunions are. We're probably going to do a best of on Friday night. We may do some live chime-ins here or there, but it's
we're definitely going to try trivia, right?
Well, it's on Friday night. It'd be tough to do because I have class reunions, unless you want to run the show.
Oh, you're talking about I thought
on
next
Friday
week.
night.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Next week. My bad.
So anyhow, that's more to come on that here in the next couple of weeks or whatever. But yeah, let's switch gears and get some bochinche or whichever we're gonna do this, and then move the show right along, man.
All right, let's do some quick bochinche, guys, because the soccer segment is going to be really good, and you guys all get to meet my young nephew. All right, so Panama, in Panama business news, that's it. The economy grew 4.8%. Last week we mentioned these numbers, but the numbers hadn't come out, and so we didn't know exactly which part of the end of the economy was booming. So the numbers came in. Transportation number one in economy in Panama right now, and that's not just the ports, hubs. That's actually semi trucks, trains, etc. Picking up the slack. And this is where the trains are going to come in to play, Willie, because of transportation, ground transportation. Tourism, we all know that's up, and we've seen that growing. Very organized, the government on promoting tourism in Panama. Commerce, in other words, Panama spends, people go to the malls, people go to the restaurants, commerce is up as well as construction, which is all the bridge projects, the highway projects. And those are the 5 things that have brought Panama back into the positive 5% growth in the first trimester. In the United States, we do quarters. In Panama, they do, every 4 months reporting instead of every 3 months. So those are the 5 growing industries that are happening. And then we also reported last week that in the shipping and foreign trade, the chiriqui, black pepper, and the softwoods were up, and $70 million were gained in profits on that. And then, of course, 25,000 Panamanians went to
How about that, huh?
Canada and spent $87.5 million there. So
Yeah.
we just took all the money we made in Panama and gave it to the Canadians. So that's good news all the way around, the way it should work. For soccer, we got a quick update before we do get into the segment is Panama now has a new rising star outside of my favorite guy, Kadir. There's a new boy by the name of Esteves Lopez. We got to keep an eye on him.
Okay.
He's called the Jewel of Panama, and he just got signed. I'm going to say this correct because I was wrong before. Bayern Munich. He got signed by them.
There you go.
Bayern Munich, and he was with Bocas Jr., first, and then he moved up. Yeah, he moved up. He got bought up by Bayern Munich. He's on their development team, like Kadir on the Brazilian side, and but he's a kid to keep an eye on from Bayern Munich.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Then we do have some baseball update news, and we're going to get right through this. So, we've been telling you about the trains, right? The train station. They're going to knock it down and this and that, and this fight for it, and Noriel, and everybody is fighting hard to keep it. And they found this, this group they found that in the contract that the bridge people signed, they're supposed to keep that train station, right? That's actually in the contract. So they're going to sue them and try to stop the demolition because of that.
Sure.
So while they're doing this, my friend Noriel finds out that...
And it's
Noriel and his group, they find out that not only are they supposed to protect the railroad station, but they were supposed to relocate all the ballparks that we all grew up playing baseball in, and they never did. So guess what? We're going to get our train stations saved, and we're going to get our ballparks back. So right on, Noriel and your group, for doing that investigative work. And that was under Mireya Moscoso, by the way.
Right on.
Who had signed that, signed it to preserve those ballparks.
Yeah, right on. There you go.
Okay, yes. Also on the sporting news, the basketball, how basketball in Latin America is pretty big, right? And they have a big, tournaments down there like they do soccer. Well, Panama is now becoming one of the powerhouses of this basketball league, between teams. So the Panamanian basketball team came out with their roster, and lo and behold, we have a Zonian on the team. All you guys, including me, we all grew up with Brian Woods, Balboa kid. He was out there on Las Cruces Street, right next to the Gares, in front of the Hyenas.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, directly from JC Sports 360, Brian Woods' kid. His name is Jordan Wood. Is playing ball on the basketball national team.
Would that be Joe Wood's grandson then?
That's Joe Woods' grandson.
Right on, man.
Yes.
Right on. Well, Joe Wood played baseball with Mark Cicero's dad.
Yes.
Or grandfather.
Yes.
I think it was with his dad. That's right. Yes, with his dad.
That's one of my dad's best high school friends, by the way.
Yes.
Mr. Woods. They all graduated together. So, Jordan played his basketball at Howard University, Tulane, and Stetson. And then he didn't make the NBA, but he's playing in the Europe League. And now he's going to be representing Panama. So a Zonian on the Panamanian team.
Right on.
All right, yeah. More Boching news. This one, you guys are going to get a laugh out of this one. So, we told you last week there was a big jail breakout of 196 people broke out. And, it's a big fiasco. It wasn't high value or, what you call it, the real bad jails. It was on the middle. So some crazy the ombudsman of Panama decides, and the ex-president Martinelli, let's fucking bring them TVs to so that the prisoners can watch the soccer games. So that's become a big fiasco. And then the president that said, you know what, we're not going to have any of that. We're not going to be giving the prisoners this opportunity, especially after they just broke out. Can you imagine that, Willie? They break out, and then they're going to give them TVs to watch.
Great reward.
Oh, my God. So, yeah, I think we need some refining of our laws.
Yeah, I'll
And
say.
then last but not least, some more stuff that we always inform you guys on. This is probably a year back that we were talking about the screwworm. The
Mhm.
famous screwworm, how it
Yeah.
was always blocked there at the Darien Gap. And then we told
Right.
you, man, with all this immigration, all these millions of people coming through the Darien Gap, we said it, man. We said on this show, that is gonna, we're not gonna be able to defend ourselves from the silkworm. It's gonna be
That was the Great Wall there for all of Central and North America.
because it was only a small piece that they
That
had
is
to
correct.
protect.
It was a very narrow area. It was much small. You had what do they call it? Whatever. Anyway, go on.
Well, now it's a one. Before it was like a $15 million war,
Yeah.
which was just at the border Darien Gap.
Sure.
Now it's a $1.5 billion war because
correct.
they got to fight it from Texas through Panama and all in between, squeeze it until they come to nothing, and then start again at Panama. So they've been doing that. So that's been going on with the screwworm in the Darien Gap. And of course, that's bringing a lot of other businesses to Panama. For example, Panama just a few minutes ago came out that they're going to now have a new, like the jungle school, but they're going to have a school of intelligence and counterintelligence operations.
How about that?
Yeah. So how about that? That's coming to Panama.
Yeah.
And that's what we got on the news, guys, for the
Right on.
Boching News. This is all Panama's a lot of stuff happening there. From all the good news we've been telling you to now things are tightening up.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And even China now is it's now not only have we lost 200 plus boats registrations because of all the harassment for the Chinese, but now they're also over inspecting all our products that are being exported. So causing us more problems. And then they also found out why they're doing this, Willie. And truly the last of the Bochincha news. And two countries, Willie, are eyeing what Panama did with their contracts. They're unconstitutional. Grenadines and something,
Yes.
that island.
Mhm.
And then the Dominican Republic. Both of them are
100%.
eyeing. So China has to make sure that they put out a message not to try this. Even though Panama is getting away with it, not to try it. So they're putting more pressure on Panama.
Well, those countries will be knocking on the United States' door next and go, hey, can you back us up? Because
Yeah, I'm sure that's what's going to happen.
You
So
know.
we'll see next week what happens with that on that front. But in the meantime, guys, that is it for the Boching News
right on
of the
right
week.
on. Very good, very good. Interesting stuff there. And of course, it's always changing, always revolving around this Panama Canal. But right now, the biggest news in Panama is the World Cup. Okay, because that's it's the biggest news on the planet, but in Panama especially, and for us Zonians as well, the World Cup is a big deal. So we're gonna bring on somebody that's a World Cup and a soccer fan, someone that I enjoyed chatting with briefly yesterday. And first thing he said to me, I was wearing a Manchester United shirt, and he goes, "Hey, I love your shirt." So right away, I knew that this guy knows what he's talking about right off the bat. So anyhow, let's bring on Paris Royal, Ricky's nephew. Hang on here. Paris, how are you? There he is. All right.
Hello, Paris, everybody. Paris Royal, my nephew.
Good to see you, man. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I know.
Good
Happy
be
to
on the
have you
show.
on. Happy to get this started.
Yep. Doing our Friday night
Thank-
thing every
thank-
Friday. Just all we do is chit chat here, and we pretend like we know things, and sometimes we do, but we typically bring people on that know things that make us look knowledgeable and smart. So that's what we're going to do here with you regarding soccer, because I do know you're a soccer fan, and you're not from Panama originally, but of course your family is from Panama. But that being said, you bring a different kind of an angle to it because you do have you're a Panama blood there, but you also have a more objective opinion of certain things. Because one of the things that I've noticed in the last few days and weeks, maybe on social media, and especially after the game the other night with Panama, was the amount of people that were bashing Panama. And I'm calling these people EFY fans. EFY means every 4 years, because these people get on every 4 years and talk about soccer like they know it inside out. And I'm not trying to brag that I know all the soccer in the world, but I watch soccer every week. I'm a true soccer fan. I've got Manchester United tattoos. My son's name is Beckham. I really am. I'm wearing an England shirt. That's, and these guys get on here and they'll start opining, and I don't know what they base it on, other than, I guess if you don't really watch soccer a lot, you think every game should be, 24-23 as a score. And And so, anyway, give us your take on or your background real quick on soccer, how you got into it, and then start telling us, what you're talking about here on the World Cup, what we're going to be covering here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've played soccer ever since I was like 5 years old up until I was around 20 and I got a big injury and I wasn't really able to play anymore. But it's been a part of my life ever since I can remember. I love watching it. I have all these memories. I can track the years by like, 2010, that's South Africa, 2014, Brazil, like I correlate life events with soccer,
Love it.
so that's it's always going to be part of my life. Yeah.
Heck yeah. No, and you definitely, it was funny what Ricky said earlier about this new up and coming Panama star, and in about 2 or 3 weeks he'll say the same thing about somebody else, but nonetheless, when he talked about it last night with us when we were doing some show prep, he said this guy that's going to Munich. And we're like, all right, you see, that's where you know who an EFY fan is, because
and that's why I brought my nephew on.
Exactly.
I definitely don't know soccer.
He did, but nonetheless, it is cool to have somebody that I can enjoy having soccer conversations with, because it really is, it's every 4 years, which makes it really special. And so you're like, man, I wish they had it every year, but then it wouldn't be as special to have the World Cup, But
and I'm seeing someone say like, I hope us EFY fans are allowed to have an opinion. Absolutely, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I just hope that you remain open-minded regardless of what your
take it
opinion
easy.
is.
Panama
Totally.
played a great game the other night.
Yeah, and I definitely, I guess we can just jump right into that.
Go ahead.
I think they were incredibly unlucky to lose that game. I can't sit here confidently and say they deserve to win. They didn't deserve to lose, though. I think
100%.
the defense that we played for 94 minutes of that game was pretty solid. I mean, I have here in my notes Semenyo on Ghana, which is number 11. He went to Manchester City in the Premier League this season for $84 million.
Correct.
These are the level of players that we're dealing with on these other teams. I would assume that player alone is worth more than all the players on Panama combined. So that's the disparity that we're dealing with here.
You could
right?
see in some of the playing in that game the quality of some of those passes. They were long passes, but they were on the money. The ball curved perfectly to get him on a full sprint to pick up that ball. I agree with you, man. This is a quality team, and not to say Panama's not a quality team, but it's at a different level. Let's not kid ourselves.
Oh yeah, I mean, Ghana has players in the French league, the Italian league, German league, the English divisions. Panama only has so many players just in Europe. Period. I think a majority of their players are from like the MLS in America and the Mexican league, which are both pretty good leagues. They're improving, especially the MLS, but there are levels to it, and just because your players are of higher quality, it doesn't mean you automatically will win. But I wouldn't sit here and be like Panama. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the biggest upsets of the tournament so far,
and it wasn't even a loss. That's the incredible thing. It's considered a big upset, and it wasn't a loss. It was a tie.
Oh yeah, I mean, we'll speak about a certain player later, but that was a fantastic match, but. Yeah, it's disappointing that Panama lost. I think just getting any type of point out of that game would have been huge.
So let me ask you a question regarding that game then. I looked at that game and I did a watch along, which is kind of interesting because it's fun to do in one way, but it's frustrating because you really can't get into the game and really just stare and focus at the game and process it, because you're trying to chit chat, you're trying to look at the camera and then obviously clicking on some stats or whatever else. But the one thing I did take away was it was definitely a game of two halves, right?
Absolutely.
Explain what you thought when it came to because the first half, certainly Panama looked like a team in control. It was just a matter of time before that ball would drop in the back of the net. And then second half, it was kind of the opposite. What are your thoughts on that? Why that occurred?
Well, you could say that they switched keepers for one thing. I know it's due to an injury, but the guy that they subbed in for the starting keeper made 3 saves that I think we're unlucky not to get at least one of them, if I'm being completely honest.
Sure.
You
But
know what? It seemed to me that Panama's strategy at the beginning was to take out that goalie. Because right from the start, they hit him twice. I think I texted you that, Paris. I'm going, are they trying to take out the goalie?
yeah,
I don't know if they're trying to take him out.
I don't think they were deliberately trying to take out the goalie, but I mean, I don't know if it did us any favors. That guy they subbed in was pretty
Super
pretty
good. Right.
spot
The other guy
on.
was 40 years old. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I mean, it honestly just came down to I don't know if the players were tired or just a lapse.
I think that played a role in it.
Yeah, and it's super unlucky. You know, you kind of just have to move on and hope for the best. But I guess we can get into the predictions later. But we just
Well,
gotta
and Ricky even mentioned
on the
this,
next
you know,
game.
when we were getting ready to start the World Cup, and prior to that, when especially a lot of the chatter picked up, that was one of the things that he mentioned was that he thinks Panama made a mistake in selecting a team that is so old, right? And you know, you pick what's available to you. You know, you pick what you assume you can work
Yeah.
best with, but you know, at the end of the game, you know, and one could argue that last goal, that guy maybe was, I mean, there was no gas in that tank when he went to try and slide in front and block that cross. You know, I mean, he was only off by, you know,
3 feet.
I mean, they weren't off by that much, but
I know, and I just looked that far.
But you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that age did play a bit of a role. But
Well, we are
then
the
they still
oldest
stayed in
team.
the game, though.
We are the oldest team in the cup.
But you held these
Really?
guys scoreless until extra time.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Ghana's attackers. You look at where they play; they're all playing for pretty good teams, or have
100%.
played for pretty good teams, and
Yeah.
you know, so you're either dealing with players that are pretty good now, or have been and have that experience. And when it comes to having like an older player or players within your team, especially in this tournament, since it's expanded, I think
Yeah.
that experience goes a pretty long way. You know,
Certainly
maybe the guy that's 35 can't, you know, play all of the games, but just having
That's
that
what
person
Willie
in the
always
locker
says.
room and, you know,
Even on the field, you know, to get them to understand.
yeah, and you don't want to waste too many of these spots on players that are just, you know, that have been there. But having someone, you look at Brazil, everyone's super upset that Neymar got selected, and who knows if he'll even play. You know, it's looking
Right.
pretty bad. But he's been there. He's almost like this
Sure.
beacon for the team to be like, okay, we can do it for this player. Portugal with Ronaldo, Messi with
There's
Argentina.
a lot of noise about Portugal and Ronaldo right now. Is
Oh,
how poorly
yeah.
they played, and I mean, you can't argue about his experience and what he brings to the field, but maybe now it's what he's not bringing to the field that's counting there. You know, going back to Panama, one player that they did miss dearly was Carrasquilla. Okay, he is the playmaker on that team. He's the quarterback of that team. If there's, you know, for somebody that wants to understand, when you talk about a playmaker in soccer, it's not necessarily the person that scores the goals. You know, it's the person that finds the open players, that creates situations, and that's what this guy does. And you know, he plays in the MLS. He's played for years for Panama and in the MLS and done successfully there. But he's nursing an injury, and I think he might have made the difference in that first half when they were dominating possession, to have that guy to get, you know, get him into that final third a little bit better. Because while I love crosses, being a fan of the English game, I think some more ball possession would have helped in that situation, and in the right places, right? And that's what this guy's going to do for those guys. So, but they just fucking sucked it.
Yeah, no, one thing is, and I feel you, Leafy. I do. The fans, we're very upset, man. Everybody's fucking cursing like that.
I know. Like I said, EFY, but that's okay. Listen, everybody has their opinions, and everybody, you know, sees what they see. I did see a game. I was disappointed in that the second half they did come out, you know, almost defensively right from the get-go. You know, and if it was getting tired, I don't think it would manifest itself right away when they kick off the ball in the second half, right? But they seem like it's almost as if you know, Thomas Christensen said, "Hey, let's defend and protect a draw or a tie," which, you know, I think, Paris, you and I agree that Panama and Ghana, that game needed to be their must-win game, because their next two games for both Panama and Ghana are against England and Croatia. So if you're going to walk away with 3 points and hope to get into the second round, that was a game to win. And so it was kind of frustrating that they seemed to pull the reins back a little bit in that second half. And And maybe he knew that he would run out of gas, and he needed these guys to go to 90 minutes. So I don't know, but I don't know. You tell me what your thought. You saw it a little different. Again, I'm go Panama. I kept saying,
I know.
"Oh, win this and move
Paris,
on."
there's all the Panamanians. We're so upset that we can't even think straight. That's why we're coming to you. What do you think? What do you do? What's your angle on this? Help us out because we're still pissed off.
Okay, so the Ghana game, like I said, I don't think they deserve to lose. I don't think it was that convincing enough of a performance to win. But that last goal, like you see, I believe his name is Brandon Thomas Asante, the number 10 for Ghana. He just skips past, I believe it's Cordoba, and then he is wide open just to pass it right across the box, and the guy's there. And I think the team was tired. I mean, they played 95 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But, it's that one little, decision or, something that doesn't go your way. Like he went in for the tackle, he went right over him, and now he has the perfect opportunity at the end of the game. And they
got an easy cross
they grabbed it.
Contested.
But I mean, it's fine margins. I'm not going to sit here and say Ghana,
blew them away.
Whizzing the ball around like,
It was a fun game to watch. If you're a neutral and you didn't care about whether Ghana or Panama won, that was a fun game to watch because it was end to end. It was back and forth, and it was it was a fun game to watch, man. I mean, it really was.
The announcers also said that.
Yeah. Yeah,
but listen, everything you guys said makes sense. But what truly won the game for that Ghana was that one guy with that anthrax-looking powder. Once that came out, I knew it was over, man.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That guy jinxed him, man. That guy jinxed him. But okay, so the game's behind us now. It's over. We're in match day 2 now. So what's next here? What are we talking about here now?
Well, what's coming up? What's our next opponent? Croatia? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, if you guys?
Yeah, so we play Croatia. I'm not sure what day it is, but we play Croatia and then we play England. And Croatia actually lost 4-2 to England. And it was
looked tired.
You think they look tired?
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, so that actually is one of the main things that I have about them is that they're an aging team, but they overperform every single time you think that, they're not going to beat a team. They got 3rd place at the last World Cup. They got 2nd place in 2018, the last time Panama was in it. So they have an aging team. I think we have the pace on them on the counterattack for sure. But they're going to set up very defensive when they're defending. When they're attacking, they'll have these outside backs who are both pretty old, but they'll be bombing forward when they're on the attack. But when they're on defense, they're going to have like 5 to 7 people all the way back on defense. So we'll see if Panama can create anything. But
Panama's going to have to be very disciplined for this game.
They're going to have to be very disciplined. They're going to have to play just as good defense, if not better, versus Croatia.
Well, I'll try and help them out. I'll be pretty high up because I'll be in section 221 behind the net there. But I'll be going to that game, man. I'm leaving Sunday night. My son and I are going, and we'll be at that stadium to watch the Panama-Croatia game. So I'm excited.
Tuesday, January 23rd.
Yeah, Tuesday, and it's a night game, which is kind of nice at least.
4 p.m. for us, Paris.
I'd almost rather be a day game because I think that would hurt Croatia more than Panama, just from the the heat and the weather and everything. But hey, it is what it is, man.
Yeah, they're playing on the East Coast, so it's going to be
a
7 p.m. game.
Yeah, we need a little something to go our way. Maybe a penalty or something.
It's a must win for either one of those two teams.
This is the game. I'll get into the England game, but this is the game. They need to win this. If they don't win this, unfortunately, I think it's probably done.
Well, the same thing for Croatia because they lost their first game as well, so they have to get 3 points on this game. It's both teams are going to be really fighting hard. Panama needs their own Bruja with good. There you go.
Hey, Willie, sorry, man.
Dale, you got it, man. You play with that. We'll chat soccer.
Remember, I'm producer when you guys are on.
Yes, you're right. But no, you're absolutely right. I think Is Panama the underdog? Certainly. Okay, because
In both of these
there's
games.
the great equalizer are both teams are old. Okay, at the same time, the great advantage for both teams that they both played, several World Cups together, right? And so you have that going for you there. So what's going to be the difference there? Honestly, heart. And for what it's worth, and again, it being ever the optimist, Panama showed heart against Ghana. Again, understanding who they're facing, and these players out there on the field knew who they were facing. To be able to hang in there that long, knowing that they were, they were outgunned. If they can bring that same effort and that same heart to this game, and some of these Croatians, some people say they've been there, so they have the experience, but sometimes that hey, I've been there already. I'm not going to kill myself here. I mean, it's a good showing. Let me just, I don't know, man. I did see something else earlier on a post on social media going back to Panama in their last game, and they said that they should have been a little bit more beast mode. And Ricky and I talked about this last week, and I referenced a game against the United States a couple of years ago where they beat the crap out of Pulisic and the rest of the United States team. They just beat them senseless. And part of me was bringing that up, that if they had done that against Ghana's a very undisciplined team. They might have gotten an opportunity to, people tend to slow down their defensive play when they have a yellow card because they don't want to get a red card, so they may not challenge as hard. Or you get somebody with a red card and you have that man advantage, right? And so I'm hoping maybe that they'll, skill-wise, I don't think Panama can compete against Croatia, right? Luka Modric, I don't care if he's 90 years old, the guy's a great player. The guy knows how to put a ball in the right spot every damn time. That being said, like you said, they showed a lot of vulnerability against Germany, right? Watching that Croatia-Germany game, what were your thoughts of Croatia, scouting them against Panama there and seeing where Panama could maybe, do some damage to them?
Yeah, like as I said previously, I think they're not the quickest. That was one thing I picked up watching the Panama-Ghana game. I think both those teams were relatively quick. I don't think a lot was separating those two teams in terms of ability. Yeah, Ghana has the better individuals. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. You're good. But they're old. A lot of times you end up, when you're in that situation, you react a lot versus trying to dictate play.
Yeah, like I think Croatia is going to control the game for the most part. But like Panama's going to have to play like awesome defense. Like it's going to have to be like the best defense you've ever seen. The ideal situation is you beat Croatia and then by any means necessary get a draw versus England. I don't know how that's going to happen, but make it happen.
They might drop their.
Sorry, Ricky.
They might drop their guards down a little bit by the time Panama gets there on the third game.
Yes, yeah,
just to conserve their energy or not injure their players for the next round. I think
England will comfortably beat Ghana. Okay, they'll have 6 points. They'll know that all they need is a draw against Panama to move on and win the group because they're already have moved on. Okay, but they want to win the group and be a first place team. So they can certainly pull that off. And I think that's where England's going to say, hey, let's rest our starters. Let's not push things and go crazy here against Panama. And again, hopefully it's one of those really hot, warm, humid days where Panama may get that advantage where England says, hey, let's not hurt ourselves, overextend ourselves, because after Panama, England, they don't know who they're going to be matched up against, but now you're against a winner. And that's where things become a little bit more difficult. And England's had a great tournament so far. If you ask me, I think they are certainly, just from the first round and now even watching their second round game, I think they're going to be a team to beat without a doubt, man. And I think they take it easy against Panama. I think they'll have won the group by then. They have nothing to gain there at all, and they have a lot to lose by getting somebody hurt or a yellow card or something. And so, I'm kind of liking that situation there. But like you said, let's look at Croatia first.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think getting a win versus Croatia is the task at hand. If they win versus Croatia, that might be the best victory in the national team's history. I mean,
without a doubt.
Yeah, the times now, and being match day 3 versus England, that actually does play somewhat of an advantage if they do win versus Ghana. Maybe we don't have to play Harry Kane again. Last time it was a hat trick, 6-1, wasn't even close. So
Right.
maybe they can sub a couple guys
he's
out.
my pick for a golden boot for the tournament.
Yeah.
So
Most people have him as golden boot, and it's crazy.
He is. So all right, well, let's talk
he's a good
about
player.
your top 5 plays for the World Cup. And this is again match day 1 for the most part, because match day 2 just started. We're into that second game for everybody. So
Yeah, totally. I guess I can start from number 5. Number 5, I have Voizinha from Cabo Verde. And if you don't know anything about Cabo Verde, I don't blame you. It's a country that has only 500,000 people, roughly. It's their first time in the World Cup. This goalkeeper is 40 years old.
Yeah.
He started playing pro at only 25, so that's a year after how old I am right now. So he started extremely late.
Certainly.
He made 7 saves versus the FIFA number 1 ranked team, Spain. It was only a 0-0 game, which most people would think is boring, but it's the circumstances. This is a country that's, I don't even know what their FIFA ranking is, playing the top contender.
Sure.
Everyone thought this was going to be an absolute blowout. It wasn't even close, thanks to this guy.
Well, and if you watch the game in Spanish, which I'm a big proponent of watching the game in Spanish, these guys, the excitement they bring to it, right? And the passion that hearing the announcers that way doing it, and going back to that game, like you said, it was a 0-0 game, but yet it was an exciting game. There was a lot of scoring opportunities. The Spanish goalkeeper, had some saves to make as well. Not nearly as many, of course, but there was excitement there. And when you got done with it, you're like, wow, can't believe there was no goals in that game, because it really was that. One interesting fact that I saw, and to me, this was absolutely incredible, that there was a player on the Spanish team on the field for 30 minutes, never touched the ball.
Wow.
That's how bad the possession was for them. That, because, everybody touches the ball at some point. The ball goes all over the field. And this guy, for 30 full minutes of play, he never once touched the ball. Which was absolutely incredible. But okay, so this guy, what's the other thing about him that's making all the noise about this guy because of his performance?
So this guy, like I said, he's a 40-year-old goalkeeper for a country who's never been in the World Cup before. He had roughly 50,000 followers on Instagram, which is like that's not nothing. That's still like more than all of us here. I'm sure. I'm sure about that. After this game, where he made 7 saves and basically saved his team and got him a point, he gained 14 million followers within 24 hours of that game ending. And I don't know what else you need to show you that soccer or football is the biggest sport in the world.
Yeah.
This guy is essentially a nobody. Nobody knew who he was, and now everybody does.
Yeah.
So,
and for that country, that was a win. That draw against Spain was a win, because that was an expected loss for them. It was an expected to get trounced game, if nothing else, because all your big teams wanted to do what the United States did, certainly what Germany did, right, and come in and score big your first game and make that statement. And Spain waltzes in, like you said, number 1 ranked team in the world, and you're going against Cape Verde. Oh, this is going to be a warm up game for us, and next, that final whistle blows, and they're looking at themselves going, man, we didn't score a damn goal, man. What the hell? And they got blasted in Spain for it. That was a failure.
Spain has something to prove in their next game. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So number 4 then.
Okay, number 4, enemy number 1 in Panama, Harry Kane.
Yes.
So he's probably going to be the top scorer of the World Cup. He has 61 goals in 51 games this season for Bayern Munich. That's more goals than games.
Sure.
Players only like Messi and Ronaldo put up those types of numbers. So really is unprecedented.
And think about this, in the group phase for him, right? His toughest game was the game last week against Croatia. Right, because England's expected the next 2 opponents, Ghana and Panama, should be easier opponents for them. And so if this guy's scoring 2 against Croatia, what's he going to do here? Because Listen, there's some
Yeah.
players up, that are pushing like you're going to show us here that are won that golden boot, man. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I think Harry Kane's going to try and win his second Golden Boot at a World Cup. England desperately needs a World Cup. There's a lot of pressure on him. He's the jewel in the crown for them alongside Jude Bellingham. I think Kane, Bellingham, and Rashford, three players that anyone on the Panamanian national team should just be hoping isn't lining up on match day 3.
Well, England is just stacked with players in every position.
And like I said, those three players scare me. They scare any team, but
England does not have a single player.
They're going to have someone else that they can just throw in for them that's maybe
there's nobody on the
good
squad that is not playing in the Premier League or in first division in somewhere else in Europe. Like Harry Kane's playing in Germany, but it's not in second division. It's not. These guys are all in the top
every single player
divisions.
on England as well as France are probably the only two teams where every single player is at the top level, like the best level that you could be at. So
absolutely.
Hoping they can make a couple substitutions on match day 3.
Exactly. Get him some rest, man. Give him
but
some rest.
he had 2 goals for Croatia. He's 10 goals in World Cup so far, and
could have easily had 4.
I'm sure he's looking at Messi and Mbappe and trying to chase them down. So we'll see what he's able to do in the rest of the tournament.
Well, he's got easier games compared to these guys, man. All right, so then number 3, another goal scorer here.
Yeah, speaking of another player, we have Kylian Mbappe at number 3, 2 goals for Senegal. Fun fact about him, he won the World Cup when he was 18. He's the only player to do that since Pelé, who won 3. So that already puts him with the greats. He's never not made a World Cup final, which is just an insane stat.
Yeah.
He has
France is
14 goals.
like the Brazil was in the early 70s, is where France is right now.
They are scary. You look at their attack, it's like, I don't know if I've seen a better attack depth on paper in my life for a national team.
I was laughing when
scary.
When they announced Rabiot in that lineup, I was like, man, this guy's 35, 40 years old, but he's been playing great.
Yeah, and like I said, with the World Cup, having these guys that maybe aren't the best for their club teams, not at the prime of their careers, but they've been there, they kind of know their role, and especially with France, just letting the superstars shine is probably a huge part of their game.
Yeah, not a lot of egos.
Yeah.
I got a question for you guys. I'm sure our viewers would like to hear this. Who's better, Pele or Messi?
Messi all day.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm a Ronaldo fan, but it's hard to argue against Messi now with everything he's done.
Really? Pele?
Yeah. Messi's the only player that has a perfect career, in my opinion.
He did get the what do you call that? The
everything.
The hat trick. He did get the hat trick.
Well, and the thing about Pele, no disrespect to Pele, but when he played, the quality of the game was much lower. The opposition was much less quality. There's a lot less countries doing it. So, it's kind of like what you look at in the NFL now. Could one of those Chicago Bears teams or the Cleveland Brown teams of the 60s, 70s compete in the NFL today? Probably not. They probably would get trounced. It's a different game. It's a different game. They're physical. You look at the guys in the 70s in any of these sports, when you watch them in the 60s, they all look like they were 40 years old when you see their pictures. And that's when they're 25 years old. You guys got today that, Ronaldo, as bad as he played this week, this guy's 41 years old. Okay. And he's still running up and down the field playing soccer. And he looks like he's 29 years old. It's just, they're a different specimen altogether. So yeah, I think Messi is for sure. He is a GOAT, man.
Well, no, who brought soccer to the forefront?
Without it, of course.
Well, then it's like a Michael Jordan, LeBron type of thing, where it's like one person globalized the brand, but the other one's probably a better player.
Yeah, it's that one. I believe Messi is, I don't know. The one thing I've always said about Messi that where if there is a knock against him is he never played in England, and the English game is a very, very different game than most other places. It's very rough. It's very fast. You have to defend. You can't be the guy that just stands around and when we're on offense, I'm going to play. You have to. They need 11 people playing on that field at all times, and that's one place Messi. I think he knew not to go there because that may have exposed his one weakness is that he's You know, it's tough to play in England, man. You take a beating there.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Well, what I think is funny is that Ronaldo played in England for 5, 6 seasons,
Yeah.
and Messi has more goals versus the top 6 in England than Ronaldo does.
Yeah, go figure that one out.
And that's only in the Champions League, so it's like the highest level.
Highest level. Yeah, no doubt about it. No,
yeah, I mean, I think if he went to England, he could have figured it out. It's a big what if, but
it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's always that's what makes it fun. It's like the way college football used to be back in the day, and you could always speculate. You know, at the end of the season, who was really number one, right? Because you didn't have all these playoffs and everything else, and the same thing there. You can it's going to always be fun because you'll never hear the end of it. I don't think Portugal will go very far this tournament. They're just kind of looking sloppy there. So, and Argentina, I think, will go far, but you know, I agree with John. I think Jordan is the GOAT. But anyhow, number 2, then this is the guy that I'm not a big fan of, but that's because I'm a United fan. So
Yeah, number 2, I got Erling Haaland. The trend here, everyone's scoring at least 2 goals. He had 2 goals versus Iraq, and I believe it's Norway's first World Cup in 28 years. The last time they were in the World Cup was France '98. I wasn't even born yet, so this is the first time I'm seeing Norway in a World Cup, and you know, who else to lead them into their first game than Erling Haaland? Yeah, I mean, this is his first World Cup. You know, he'll probably play in a couple more. How many is he gonna get? You know, Mbappe already has 14. Messi's at the end of the career. He just broke the record.
Yes.
I'm not
Haaland
saying
is a scoring machine. This guy is
he's a scoring machine.
machine.
I don't think Norway will get a World Cup. You know,
No.
who's to say? Maybe, you know, crazy.
He's like
things
Ryan
have
Giggs.
happened, but
Hey,
yeah,
nephew, I gotta apologize. We got your name wrong. Your dad's all over my case right now. I see the double R. Pears is with 1 R, Willie.
My bad. Okay, well,
I didn't even notice.
I didn't either. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
your dad's like, get my son's name right. What's wrong with you?
I'll update that here just a bit. We'll get it going good for the next one. But yeah, no, that's interesting. And again, being a United fan, I'm not a fan of Erling Haaland, but the guy is an absolute beast of a player. I've certainly wanted him to sign for United, but we knew that wasn't going to happen. So real quick history of Erling Haaland. Man. Well, but here's the thing: Erling Haaland and Manchester United, when the manager that tried to sign him, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who's Norwegian, coached him in Norway at a different club when he was much younger. So they had a great relationship.
Yeah, Molde.
But go back further than that. Erling Haaland's dad is a guy named Alfie Haaland. Played for Manchester City back in the day. And Manchester United, one of their greatest captains ever, a guy named Roy Keane, was playing in a game. And yeah, it is my fault. I'll get the yellow card for that. No worries. I'll take the card for that. It was a professional foul. But anyway, Roy Keane got hurt in a game. He tore his ACL. And Alfie Haaland was standing on top and making fun of him and yelling and screaming at him like he was faking it or whatever, and pissed him off. And Roy Keane held that grudge, and he was out for 6 months or whatever and did all his recovery and everything. And when he came back, if you look it up on YouTube, he came into him and he just kicked the shit out of his knee, flipped him over on his head, took his knee out, and ended his career.
Well, isn't that what they did to Carrasquilla in Mexico a couple of weeks ago?
But this one's brutal. It ended his career, literally ended his career. He never played soccer again after that kick. And so when they were saying that United is pursuing, Erling Haaland, I'm like, he's not going there. His dad is not going to. He grew up hating United because that team ended his dad's career. So there's no way in hell that guy will ever play for Manchester United. I don't care.
Yeah, and I want to say the first Manchester derby, he scored a hat trick. So
yes, exactly.
I think it was personal.
100%. Because you got to assume that he was a little kid at that time, and he watched his dad, and his dad probably cursed United his whole growing up. So
Yeah, I think if the sporting project was moving along at the pace of Manchester City's at the time, he would have at least considered it. But I mean, look at
he'd have considered it just to get more money.
He would have considered it if Ole stayed as the coach, just because of that connection.
Yeah,
you can't even. I don't think you can compare Manchester City and Manchester United.
No, you can't. But I'm telling you, watch that.
It's like Pep Guardiola or Eric Ten Hag. Like, that's an easy choice for me.
Yeah.
So I don't blame him.
Yeah.
Anyway. Willie, I think you've met your match.
Yeah, no. Listen, I love this. I love somebody that has some knowledge of soccer. It's great, man. It's a lot of fun. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's go to your number one selection here, because this one's a rather obvious one, and we were mentioning it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, like, who else but the GOAT, Messi?
Can't argue.
3 goals versus Algeria. The first goal gets in a little pocket of space, sends it top right corner with the left foot. You just knew it was going to happen. Second goal, rebound from McAllister off a long shot. Perfect positioning. He's doing this at 38 years old. He's about to be 39. I don't imagine I could do any of this when I'm that age. He just became the World Cup top goal scorer. Tied, will probably break it in this tournament, or
Yeah.
at least
Yeah, he
most
tied
of
with
us
Klose.
hope. He's tied with Miroslav Klose from Germany.
By the way, do you know something? Here's an interesting trivia on Miroslav Klose. His family is from Panama. He actually,
Really?
yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of guys that ended up in Germany way back in the day there, but anyway, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think he's going to end up breaking that record.
Yeah, I think he'll end up breaking the goal record. He just tied the assist record, or no, he tied it last tournament. So he's tied on the assist record with Maradona, tied on the goal record. I think he'll break both of them just with how Argentina's playing. It seems like they're the world champions. All this pressure's completely off his shoulder now. You can just tell by the way he's playing. He doesn't have this pressure of like, I have to be Maradona. I have to deliver. He's already delivered.
That was always the race between the two of them, was who's going to get World Cup
absolutely.
first.
And some people are saying that Messi, he had gotten news earlier today that his father had either gotten ill or he was playing with a heavy heart and he was playing for his dad. I mean, some people say he was crying after the first goal.
Yeah, I think he was. I saw some photos of that. But
well, and there was another goal that was called back for offsides that
he could have had four. Yeah. And it was fine margins, I mean, I thought it went in. I got excited. So but I guess he had to compromise and only score 3 of them.
Yeah, no, it's fun to watch. As whether he's a rival or not, you appreciate a good game, right? And especially when it comes to the World Cup, because it's a little easier. My passions when it comes to the World Cup, oftentimes, other than outside of that, England, it's really maybe players that play for Manchester United, right? And so it's great to watch, and it's all pretty awesome that there's so many United players out there in this World Cup. But somebody like Erling Haaland that I just absolutely don't like him to succeed at all. But watching the World Cup is a different story, right? Because it's you're
because he's doing it for Norway and not Manchester City.
It's not a club that's rivaling my club kind of thing. And so in that sense, it's a little bit different. You kind of enjoy it a little bit more. You appreciate what they do there. But yeah, Messi is just another interesting stat there, that he became the first player to play in 6 World Cups, but he became the first one by scheduling.
Yeah, he became the first one by scheduling. The other 2, Ochoa from Mexico and Cristiano Ronaldo from Portugal.
And Modric.
And Modric. Okay, that's actually one that I forgot. Yeah.
Exactly. And so these guys were going to be the first one to play in 6 World Cups, because Argentina got scheduled early in the tournament. He gets to get the first one to do that. And
he'll have that on his resume
always,
forever.
even though they all played in that same World Cup in that 6th one, but there's only one name that goes to the top, and he got it. So but yeah, overall then, what are your thoughts on the World Cup so far then?
I'm loving it. I don't think there's been a boring game yet. And all the great players are turning up, and even some ones that we don't expect, like Vozinha, who would have called that, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
But
Indeed.
match day 2 has been pretty good so far. I think Brazil's playing right now. I couldn't tell you what the score is, but maybe they're winning. Maybe Haiti's winning. Who knows?
They're winning 1-0 right now.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
30 minutes into that game. So, and I imagine that's the way that game's going to continue. But the other fun thing that I love to see in the World Cup is always that up and coming star, that new name that suddenly becomes part of the other ones. I remember when Mbappe did that, when he put his name on because in 2018 he was there. He made the squad, but he didn't have an impact on the squad. But then the next World Cup, all of a sudden, this guy put his name all over it, and it's cool to see that. The one name that sticks out for me when it comes to that sort of welcome to the world was and I forget which World Cup it was, maybe South Africa or maybe even Germany, but it was James Rodriguez when he had that
Oh,
incredible
absolutely.
goal, and all of a sudden he was just a household name. And prior to that, nobody had ever heard of this guy. In fact, people would laugh at James because it's spelled James, right? But in Colombia, that was James, and that was his, and suddenly he became a household name after that in every World Cup. But prior to that, nobody had ever heard of this guy until he got that one World League goal, man. And
Yeah, I mean, and it only takes one,
That's
maybe
it.
one, even just one goal in a World Cup,
that's
let
all it
alone an
takes.
outstanding campaign like that. I mean, he made his career off that one
Sure,
7-game tournament.
They have
he
the
got
guy
him
for
into.
Sweden that came in, and after 14 seconds he scored, which is a record now for the quickest goal for coming on to a game as a substitute. I mean, he hadn't even broken a sweat yet, and all of a sudden he's on the scorecard there, man. So that's
Yeah.
I love the World Cup, man. It is so much fun.
It is, yeah.
There's so much passion. The fans, you just, I mean, everything about it. It's really cool watching Curacao, even though they got trounced when they scored that first goal. Their manager was shedding a tear because he was born in Curacao, right? Dick Advocat cut his teeth managing big clubs in Europe and stuff, and he's managed the Dutch national team and stuff. But he went back to Curacao, and here they're scoring a goal against Germany in the World Cup, and those moments are really, really cool to watch, and that's what the World Cup brings is that passion like nothing else in the world, So. All right, so real quick, let's talk about coming up, because there are some great games coming up here. In fact, tomorrow's a fantastic day for soccer, guys. There's some really, really big matches. Netherlands and Sweden kick it off, which is going to be a great game. Those are two European teams that did well. Both of them, did well in the first round, so they're going to look to try and take the lead in that group. So look for a lot of goals there. And the same thing goes with Germany and Ivory Coast. Those are two really, really good, solid teams. Germany has scored 7 goals, but it was against Curacao. Let's be realistic, right? This is now a real challenge for them is Ivory Coast. A lot of Premier League players on there. Amad Diallo scored a goal for Ivory Coast, Manchester United player, so a lot of good players on that team. That's going to be a great game. Ecuador, Curacao, who knows? Curacao may have a bone to pick and say, hey, we're not going to be spanked around that much. And so, hopefully they can, step back in and give Ecuador a game. And then that Tunisia, Japan, that's going to be another really, really good game. Japan's playing some good soccer. These are some good groups here, man. They've put together some good games. So, so tomorrow's a great day for World Cup soccer, guys. You can see some real quality action. And again, get it on Telemundo, man, because it's so much
it's
better.
a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
big
100%.
difference.
100%. So, all right. Well, Paris, listen, thanks so much. Hopefully you'll join us again next week and give some more recaps.
Definitely.
I think this is a lot of fun. I think you're a natural at this, man.
You saved your uncle because I could not keep up with Willie on this conversation.
And I will make sure I get the spelling right. I apologize for that. It is
no problem.
Yes, I'll work on some clever editing here and throw it together right. But so what are your picks and your predictions coming up for Panama, for the United States, and I don't know, are you an England fan as well? Oh, wait, hold on, guys. Oh no, Brazil just scored again. All right. I think it was Cunha too, by the way.
Oh, perfect.
So, yeah, he did a little surfing dance when he scored. So gotta love that. Another Manchester United player. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on the upcoming games then? Your predictions?
Like these 4 or just
sure,
like
these 4. These 4 are coming up because these are some good games, man.
Perfect. Yeah, I think Netherlands and Sweden will tie. I think they're similar levels. Netherlands, you think would win if you really pay attention, but Sweden won 5-1. I think they're in flow state. They got the country behind them. I got a couple friends supporting them. And Netherlands really just doesn't convince me on the attacking front. I think they have a solid midfield, solid defense, despite Japan scoring 2 on them.
Listen, they're still trying to get Memphis Depay to play there, so that tells you everything.
It's ridiculous. I mean, him being their top goal scorer boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Over like Cruyff and all these legendary players.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I mean, I have that as a draw, maybe like a 1-1, 2-2 draw.
Sounds like you're wishing Sweden will win it, but okay, I'll go with that then.
I'm not wishing, but I think it'll be a draw regardless
right
of what the score is. And yeah, I'll go bold and pick Ivory Coast to beat Germany.
Okay.
I think I'm
Yeah.
hoping Ahmad and Diomande can do something on the
Yeah.
wings out there. Ahmad plays for Manchester United.
Yes.
Diomande is a very in-demand player. If nobody knows who that is, I mean, he
Well,
might be
and
playing
real
for
quick history on
Liverpool, Arsenal.
yeah, and Ahmad last year or the year before had what people would consider a really breakout year. Had a fantastic season. Was a key player for United, and then last year he kind of took a step back. He didn't play as well, so a lot of people said that he was going in this World Cup with something to prove, and he did. He scored their winning goal in the last game, and so be on the lookout for that guy because he's going to be busting his ass to try and get. United's buying a lot of players right now in the transfer window, and he's going to want to.
He's gonna have
prove
to
something
show him
there.
why they're like you need to keep me.
And
But
no better way to showcase yourself than beating Germany. So,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's probably going to be the best game of tomorrow
Yeah,
if I
agreed.
had to guess.
Yeah.
But moving on to Ecuador Curacao, I think Ecuador just has too much quality. They
Curacao made it.
event
That's it.
Curacao, they're in it. I would love for them to pull off a draw or a
Sure.
win even, but I think Ecuador has too many quality players in that team to allow for them to lose. Maybe they don't win, but Ecuador probably will win if I had to
I would
guess.
think so.
It's just going to be a game of attrition. Ecuador's
Yep.
going to be on the attack. One of them is going to go in eventually, and if they get a goal in the first half or earlier than the 20th minute or first water break, I think it's just game over. And
I think
it's
if
gonna
Ecuador
be,
scores first, they win.
yeah, if Ecuador scores in the first 20 minutes,
Yeah,
I
at any
think it's
point, I
gonna
think
be,
if they score first, I think Curacao at that point is like, look, now we've given up 8 goals. We're done.
yeah, it's like their goal differentials
Yeah.
in the
They need to
mud.
score first just to feel the hope, like, hey, we got something going. But if once that ball goes in the net, they look back at it, I think they'll be like, yeah, you know what, we made it. To the
Yeah,
World
I
Cup.
mean, I'm curious to see what the game plan is there,
Yeah.
but I think the world's rooting for them to do something.
Oh
So
heck yeah,
it'll
I'll
be
be
fun
rooting
to
for them,
see.
man. Heck
Yeah, why not? I mean,
Yeah, fuck yeah, man.
they're such a small nation.
Absolutely. And then the late game, that's gonna be a good one.
I don't know much about Tunisia. I'm gonna be so
Well,
honest, but I know Japan.
Tunisia got beat by Sweden, and they got beat pretty good. But
Yeah.
Tunisia's a good squad. Okay, these North African teams are really good. Most of these guys ply their trades in France and Italy, in Spain. Okay, and they've got some quality players there. I wouldn't rule them out yet. But Japan is a good team. They really are a good squad, man. It's
Yeah,
Got
I
that
mean,
samurai DNA.
Yeah.
yeah,
And you know, it's
definitely.
interesting. The whole Japanese, this is a really cool thing about their culture, and it's something that you hear about. Not just in this World Cup, but again, it's coming out in the news. Is when the game ended, the fans are in the stands cleaning up. Before they leave. It's really,
Yeah,
really cool that they have that, and it's always, you see that they have that culture of respect, right? And everything seems to have a lot of
absolutely.
respect with it, and it's just another fun thing to see that's part of what makes the World Cup so cool, right? Is it showcases different cultures, different people's beliefs, and how they do things and how they see the world and stuff. So that's been exciting. And then of course, Bucky's is probably getting bombarded with people because everybody in social media from overseas is like, these Bucky's places are crazy. They're incredible. I guess at least in
Yeah,
Florida, I don't know where else they have Bucky's or not, but
I
they
think Texas, right? That's it, Texas.
probably. I think it's the South and the Southeast kind of thing. And then Walmarts and everything else. But yeah, they're just getting all kinds of props. People are just amazed at the country,
Yeah.
what America has to offer, and it's really cool because this is what the World Cup does is it gives countries an opportunity to showcase themselves, and there's been a lot of ugliness in the world, and it's kind of cool that in spite of all that, for the most part, people are focusing on just the positive things going on in the World Cup and seeing all the you know all the different cultures, the
Cultures, yeah.
national anthems, the pride at just singing a national anthem makes somebody shed a tear because it's the first time their team's been at that world stage. And so yeah, I love everything about this. So anyway, Paris, thanks again for taking the time to do this on your Friday night, and looking forward to a report next week. And again, we'll have a better spelling on your name there, man.
yeah.
Thank you, Paris.
Guys
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a blast. Yeah,
All right, man. We'll take it easy. Have a great rest of your weekend, man.
yeah.
We'll
Thank
talk to you
guys so
soon,
much.
Paris.
See ya.
Yeah, bye.
All right, Ricky, that was
I'm
good,
glad.
man.
Wow, I hope you like that
Yeah.
because that's exactly what you wanted. But listen,
He's great,
speaking of,
man.
yeah,
He sounds confident. He knows what he's talking about. It's
he
really cool,
does.
man.
He
It
does.
was
They
good.
love soccer over at that
Oh,
house.
you can
They
tell.
really do.
I'm
They
telling.
have.
Listen, when I was, and I didn't even know it. I didn't do it on purpose. I just happened to be wearing a United shirt, and we jumped on the studio, and he popped in, and the first thing he goes, "Hey, man, I love your shirt." I was like, "All right,
He's
man,
a
we
big,
are
big
so
fan.
good." Yeah.
So Willie, next week we're doing that trivia, right?
Yeah, next week we're gonna do we'll do trivia. It's the end of the month. We
Yeah.
haven't done a good trivia in a while.
I
so
know
we'll-
I'm itching. I got a little trivia since we've been
All
talking
right.
about Japan,
Right on.
and I brought up the samurais. So speaking of samurais, Willie, when was the first time? And I'm talking the legit samurais, the black
Okay.
belts, not the white belts, the black
Right,
belts.
right.
When was the first time these black belt samurais crossed the isthmus? Was it in 1821 after the separation of Panama from Gran Colombia? To come celebrate that,
Okay.
bring some whoop ass with them, or was it 1904 after the 1,000 Day War? Again, for the same reason, bring some of that DNA whoop ass, or was it 1860, 20 years before the railroad? So there was just nothing there. Which 3 years would you guys say that the
That's
true
interesting.
delegation of samurais crossed the Panama Canal for the first time? By the way, they were on their way to Washington, D.C.
Right. And I think I know the answer because somebody that chimes in on our show often
Yes.
has told us about it and posted some really cool things on Instagram about this. So I think I'll
Matsushita,
defer
he's
from
always
that.
on our show. It's actually Matsushita 9804 is from his account. Well, the number they came in 1860. It was a group of 70 members, an official delegation that was on their way to Washington D.C. crossed through the isthmus in 1860.
Yeah, and the gentleman
So
on the
cheers to
screen
that
right there, Akira,
brotherhood
he's-
with the
yes,
Japanese.
absolutely, cheers. And it's Saturday morning over there, so they'll be watching Japan here at probably noon. I guess you guys will be having lunch, and then you can watch Japan play. And good luck. I think they'll do well against Tunisia there. Japan's got a good team, man. They really got a good team. But
they did very well. They did very, very well on the last.
Yes. Listen, they're a solid team. They always have been. I saw them come and play in Tampa years ago. I think they played against. It was against an African team. It was a friendly, but it was just. I mean, they are a really, really disciplined team. They play really good technical soccer. It's fun to watch, man. It's they play very similar to a German style of soccer. It's very, very rigid, but very positional, and it's cool, man. It's cool. Yeah, Brazil's up 2-0 right now. They're about to end the half. 6 minutes. So, I still haven't seen a single reversal. There's a couple of rules in the World Cup that are going into effect to impact time wasting. Okay. If you guys recall the last World Cup 4 years ago, one of the things that they decided on was they're going to tack on time at the end of the half and at the end of the game for all the time wasting. Right? Because they had been doing studies and they were realizing that some of these 90-minute games, you're getting 40, 50, sometimes even less than 45 minutes of actual playing time. And the rest of the time they're tying their shoe, they're doing this, they're discussing this, they're doing all that shit, and they're not actually playing the game. And so in this World Cup, in Qatar, what they said was, okay, we're going to tack that time on. And so if you recall, at the end of the half, when they'd hold the board up and you're thinking like 3-4 minutes extra, they'd be like 14 minutes, 16 minutes.
And that's what happened to Panama, right?
They were just having these extremely long extra times. And so this World Cup, they decided, okay, we're still trying to combat the time wasting, but it doesn't really make sense to do that because you're not stopping the time wasting. You're just really giving people more time to play and you're just extending the games. Yep. So what they've done is on throw-ins and on goal kicks, you have a certain time.
Oh, like
on
baseball.
throw-ins, you have 5 seconds. And if in those 5 seconds you haven't thrown the ball in, guess what? The ref blows a whistle. Now the other team gets the ball. They throw it in. So now you don't have that time to, looking around, look this way, look that way. And I mean, you had 30 seconds to every throw in, 10 throw-ins later, dude, that's 3 minutes of time you've wasted, so it adds up. Same thing with a goal kick. You got 8 seconds. If not, they turn it into a corner kick, which is really dangerous because now you create a scoring opportunity.
And you know what else I've noticed, and maybe it's just me. I've noticed that they're not calling all the fouls like they used to. So I guess that's preventing all those fake fake drops. And
some of
stuff
them
like
do,
that.
some of them don't. I've often said that when you have a ref that is calling everything, it's like they want to be the star of the game. They want everybody to watch why they're making a call, and so everybody's paying attention to this, and whereas a ref, a great ref, in my opinion, should hardly ever be seen, but the game should flow smoothly. If it gets out of hand, you call the people. If not, there's another goal. Brazil 3-0. Yeah, they're going to destroy them. But yeah, so I think they're letting him play. They're giving him that opportunity to play and just say, you know what, Now that being said, it's interesting you bring that up because there's a lot of controversy with the GOAT, Lionel Messi, because in that first game he stepped on a guy on the back of his on the back of his calf with his cleats, and they didn't even call anything on that. And the rules are that if it's an injury with the cleats and you hurt somebody, you commit a what they consider a violent foul, they can review that, look at the video, and if they see it, you can call the foul afterwards and give them a red card. And a bunch of people are saying that that's what should have happened to Messi, but simply because it's Messi and the whole politics of the game, that there was a non-call. And if you see the replay of it, go on YouTube and look at Messi's non-call. It was blatant. I mean, if the ref didn't see it, understood, but the VAR, they should have caught that on the monitors and said, hey, call him down and say, hey, hold on, you got to stop play here. You got to review this thing, because that was and whether he did it on purpose or not, the fact remains he put his studs on the back of the guy's calf and brought him down, man, and that's a big no-no. So, but. Yeah, it's so far, again, it's been a really, really cool World Cup. I'm enjoying it thoroughly. But anyhow, let's switch gears now. Let's get back onto some Canal Zone stuff here. We'll pay some quick bills, and we're going to do some Canal Zone construction. We're going to 1906 when the machine starts to be built. Okay, 1904, we came in and said, hey, let's kick ass and start making the dirt fly. And we realized in about 6 months, like, oh boy, this is a disaster.
We need some trains. Now, 1906, was that Stevens or was that Goethals?
No, that was Stevens. He was
Stevens
well,
still.
it was for part of it. He didn't last the whole year, and that's when Goethals took over. Okay, but Stevens is the one that really planned this out. 1905 was a year that he said, okay, you know what? Let's gather what we have. We got a bunch of French equipment and start using that. Let's retool things. Let's redo the whole railroad thing here and move on. Anyway, we'll recap that here in a moment. Let's get some bills paid real quick.
Where can I find El Fulo?
He's out there catch waves.
Hey, Fulo! Fulo!
Oh yeah, I know food. I'm a Steel Chef winner. You know the food competition?
Really?
Yeah, look, check out this video of my win on YouTube. The secret ingredient? Frozen shrimp. I'm gonna blow their minds. They're gonna be like, how did he do that?
Microwaved?
Trust me, dip it in the Howler Monkey Sauce Verde, you'll be blown away.
I love the balance of the garlic with the tang of the vinegar. I mean, it's classic. That's why it works so well with seafood.
Yeah. This combination of green habaneros and green bell peppers, it transforms the shrimp. Wow.
You were right. Dipping it in the Verde Howler Monkey Sauce, the combination of cilantro and sweet onions, man, that made a zero a hero.
Do you know a howler monkey who can describe the sweet heat of our original with authentic ají chombo peppers, or the fresh punch of Verde where habanero warmth meets crisp bell pepper? How about the bold tang of Amarillo, yellow Scotch bonnets blended with mustard seeds? And of course, our hot, the same great flavor as original, fired up with red habaneros for that fire. Our sauces are all natural, no preservatives, gluten-free, pure flavor and pure fire. Are you the next Howler Monkey spokesperson?
So there we go. That's that Verde, man. That really is a good one with seafood. It really goes well with seafood because it doesn't have an overpowering, beefy kind of, I mean, it is subtle. All that cilantro and all that stuff, it really goes well with seafood. I mean, that fish tacos are fantastic with that. Ceviche would fantastic on ceviche. So, yeah, more to come on that. Thank you. Appreciate that, Howler Monkey Sauce, for helping us out here on the show. But anyhow, so again, we're moving into construction, guys, where we've been talking about this whole project that building the Panama Canal started in 1904, went till 1914. It was a long project, 10 years. Last month we talked about the beginnings of it, right? The 1904, the saying was, make the dirt fly, right? We had just signed this agreement. This lieutenant happened to be hanging around one day, and they said, hey, guess what? You get to be the guy that's going to sign the paperwork on acquisition day. You take over the canal, give us the keys, and we'll start working. And after a while, they realized when they went to turn that car on, they go, oh my God, this car sucks, man. And they popped the hood and they realized that it was a disaster, right? And so they spent a whole year retooling what they could, right? They repurposed a lot of equipment they found from the French. The French had abandoned a lot of stuff. Remember, the French operation collapsed. Okay, it wasn't like it gradually drew down and it started, pulling people out like the Canal treaties kind of thing. It was, hey, don't come back tomorrow. We don't have any money. We're broke.
Yeah, they ran out of money 10% in.
Yes, and so it collapsed, and so I mean, the United States, when they started working in there, they found dredges and stuff in places you'd never imagine. Okay, and so they found a lot of equipment, which was on paper like, wow, this is fantastic. We saw some great numbers there. 600 and something, train cars, and 400 of them were repurposed from the French. And so we started using that stuff in 1905 as we realized that this is an excavation operation, but the truth is it's a rail operation, okay? Bringing and kicking up the dirt, the rocks and stuff is not a problem. It's moving it. We got to get it out of there. And that's what the challenge was. So that's where 1905 was. That's what Stevens really did, okay? He was a railroad guy. He was brought in basically to look at this thing and go, hey, you know what? I've built railroads. I've gone through the passes up in the Northwest, and I know how to do this. And he created the concept of this like basically a giant conveyor belt, right? That was constantly moving spoil, constantly, retooling and so forth. But all that aside, those plans were fantastic. They worked great, but you're still working with subpar equipment. Right? You're still working with a lot of French equipment. You're still working with a lot of small, trains that really don't carry large loads. We still hadn't really geared up to the U.S. industrial might yet. We started ordering all the locomotives, all the steam engines, the Bucyrus machines, and all that stuff. 1906 is when that really started to kick in, because one of the things we learned last month was that just because of the disorganization, you had stuff sitting on ports and just rotting and being destroyed and being lost. And the paperwork itself was literally rotting away because they had nowhere to store it. And so when all of a sudden somebody come up to these train cars and have a bunch of spoiled food in there, whose is it? You look at the paperwork, even the paperwork had disintegrated. It was just a big logistic.
This is the humidity more than anything.
100%, So now we get into 1906, okay? And this is where now we're ready to really kick it into gear, okay? Things are going to change here. They weren't still perfect yet, but they were starting to change, right? And so a couple of things that happened in 1906 that were still very apparent is that we still were undertooled, okay? We had a lot of French equipment, but it just didn't work. A lot of that equipment was brought in thinking that this was going to be like digging sand in the Suez Canal. Turns out it wasn't anything like that at all. And so, they had to take care of that. We had finally recognized that the yellow fever and the malaria and all that stuff, where it really was coming from. But believe it or not, there were still people that were not bought into that. There were still people that believed that it was from the bad air. People were getting these things from. So, there was still a lot of that going on. There was still a lot, the death rates had plummeted, but there was still a significant number, right? It wasn't something that was still an easy place to recruit people to go to, right? We still had to pay premium salaries to get Americans to go down to Panama because it still was a dangerous place, right? So, part of these crises, the sanitation, the adherence to this, that yellow fever, right? Malaria was one, but the yellow fever was the one that was rampant, and that was the one that was really decimating them. And they call it miasma. Now, miasma is that concept of bad air is making people sick. And so they finally officially adopted the policies that Gorgas had pushed and said, no, it's mosquitoes. It's all about sanitation. It's all about getting rid of the water. Okay.
Standing water.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, in 1906, they finally, a mandate came down that they're going to go ahead and transform it. And they realized not only the canal zone, but Panama as well, because mosquitoes don't respect borders, right? And so if you got a bunch over there across the street, guess what they're going to do? They're going to come across this way to feed. And so Panama got themselves a great start as a nation with a capital city that had modern state-of-the-art roads and plumbing and everything else, because you needed that in order for the U.S. to be able to build their canal, right? Is you had to clean up the entire area there. Remember, the canal border, guys, went all the way to Paitilla, the canal zone border, technically, right? It was 5 miles on either side of the canal. And so
we had an airport out there.
That whole area was canal zone until the 50s.
Correct.
It was all part of the canal zone. That whole area there, they just separated the Panama City area just the same way they did on the Atlantic side with Cologne.
Cologne, right.
But
Cologne's completely surrounded by canal lands.
It was kind of odd the way they had that worked out, but it was part of their gig there. So anyway, the other thing that finally came to be settled, and I still find this hard to believe that it took this long to do it, was whether they're going to do a locks canal or a sea level canal.
Mm-hmm.
It took till 1906 to do that, guys. Okay. And here's the interesting part, is that the sea level canal was the one that was favored by the majority of the experts, the people that were there consulting. They really were pushing for a sea level canal. It was endorsed by the majority of the board, a lot of foreign experts, but then again, a lot of these foreign experts tried to build a canal 20 years before and couldn't. So maybe it was good that we weren't listening to them. But here's another interesting thing. The estimated cost for a sea level canal was going to be $247 million, which is a ton of money today. Okay. Timeline was going to be 20 plus years to build a sea level canal.
Right. To get through those mountains.
Right. They got some
out of money,
crazy,
10% in.
Right. Exactly. Well, there was a lot of corruption. A lot of that was stolen anyway. But
correct. That is true.
But the excavating volumes, I'm not a math person to do all those incredible numbers. But the one interesting thing was that river strategy. Okay. Because the Chagres River could be a stream in the dry season or the Mississippi in the rainy season. It was just that much volume of water that it could move quite suddenly. And so for a sea level canal, they weren't going to use that at all. They were going to build a dam in Gamboa and have that river run up over by Portobello out in that direction somewhere. They're completely going to reroute the river in that direction. And that was for the sea level plan. Then you jump over to the lake level plan, or the lock and lake plan. Again, just the minority of the board endorsed that. But Stevens, William Howard Taft, who at the time was Secretary of the Navy, but eventually he'd become president as well, and Teddy Roosevelt all endorsed it. So you might be in the minority, but when you got those names behind it, that's like they say in Panama, that's palanca there, man. So guess which plan worked? It went for that locks canal. But even in spite of all that, look at the cost difference: $139 million versus $247 million. So over $100 million difference in savings, right? Timeline, less than 10 years. And I think the canal would have been done in less than 10 years if it wasn't for all those landslides and stuff, and what they found at the beginning, where they really had to, almost take a year off and retool everything.
Almost 2 years. Yeah, you're right.
Right. But again, that river strategy was to make the Gatun Dam and use the Chagres as opposed to try and defeat the Chagres. Right. And as we've learned now, that's been quite successful. It really did work out great for them. So that was interesting. And again, here, just interesting, the layout of the org chart, right? You had Roosevelt, and then William Howard Taft was Secretary of War. I said Secretary of Navy. He was Secretary of War. He was the second one in charge. And then later on, he became president. So I think when he came down to visit, it wasn't just, hey, I'm the president, I get to take this trip to Panama. He was obviously, in that org chart there. So he paid attention to this thing, and it was probably important. And having been a Secretary of War, he probably realized the military value of the canal. And so therefore he wanted to make sure he visited. Hey, Cassie, how are you?
Yes,
Cassie's
that's
been
Zonian.
Yes, Cassie Sprague has been making quite the rounds in the RV, going to Canada and a couple of different places. It's been cool to watch that, It looks like an awesome
Zonian royalty.
Yes, indeed. Royalty indeed. A couple other things that happened there. Theodore Shantz was the chairman of the ICC, and remember, now they were moving that stuff to Panama, right? One of the big issues they ran into in 1904 was, if you had, this is an interesting thing about the bureaucracy, right? The ICC was run out of Washington, and so every decision on the canal operation had to be done in Washington. You had to cable them up there, and sometimes it would take days, maybe even weeks, to get something back. Happy birthday, girl. Oh, right on. Well, happy birthday.
Cassie.
Woo, happy birthday to you. So what happened is when they moved that stuff to Panama, it expedited things, which not only made it more efficient, but in often cases, it saved lives. It would save equipment, right? You take, for example, we learned that also they had these watch posts way up in the Chagres that they could tell, hours, sometimes days ahead that you're going to have some catastrophic flooding. It's getting ready to start. The river's getting ready to crest. And so you're like, well, we got to move these rail lines because remember they had those track shifters, right? We can do all these things here. Well, guess what? You got to reach out to ICC in Washington to cable them. They may respond 2 days later. Yeah, go ahead and move that stuff. Well, guess what? It's too late. They got washed out. The flooding came and went. And that's the problems they were running into. That's what eventually led to Stevens even resigning. He's like, I can't take this anymore. This is ridiculous, man. I got work to do here, and I got to wait for some clown up in Washington doesn't even know what the canal looks like is making a decision. And it's taking him 3 days to do it. So
the first guy also had that problem.
Correct. The first guy had, and he had the pressure of the president because love Teddy Roosevelt, but he put him in there and he goes, make the dirt fly, and really not knowing what he had gotten himself into at the time. So, but anyway, that's another story for another time. But so three things that were three cores that really kicked off 1906 that made this thing, successful and really make that operation, what it turned out to be. Little Panama Canal trivia on my trip so far. Harley Davidson motorcycles were used up and down the canal. Oh, right on. How about that? There you go. That's a Zonian thing as well. The Harley Davidson. Heck yeah.
Aren't you doing a piece on the motorcycles of Panama, of the Canal Zone?
We've been talking about doing something with that, the motorcycle clubs and stuff, because there's some cool stuff there. Absolutely. Yeah, that would be cool. So anyway, so the three pillars, the three crux that they were working on here, one was, again, that rail foundation that we had learned from Stevens in 1905. Finished doing that, the double track. It's insane to think that these guys at some points had to have rail cars sitting there full of spoil, waiting 2 and 3 hours for the tracks to free up so they could take their spoil to go and dump it. Just because they had one track going in both directions. It was just insane to think that. But so that whole rail piece had to be done. The other one was the supporting infrastructure. This is where they really made sure that the people that were working there were taken care of, right? Because at the end of the day, for all the steam engines you had, it was still relied on manpower more than anything else. And so, construction of massive housing units, mess halls, municipal water systems, again, in Panama and Cologne. So they really put an effort into taking care of the people and the environment to make it a place worth, living and working in, right? And then the last one was the mechanical upgrades. This is where we realized, 1905 was really cool in that we did that inventory, right? We saw that last month. We did a great inventory, found a lot of French equipment. We're thinking, holy shit, this is great. We got all this equipment to work with. But as we started putting it into use, we realized, man, it's going to take 30 years to dig with this crap. So, that was the last priority, was to update that obsolete equipment, get the big US steel into these big, 95-ton, steam shovels, everything that really made it possible to dig through the Continental Divide versus digging sand in the Suez Canal. So, once we hit these three things, 1906 turned out to be a great year to really kick off the canal and their construction, right? Again, reminding of this spoiler system that they use, this conveyor belt. This really is what made this thing work. Okay, you had a bunch of these trains constantly moving. When they were getting filled by the excavators, the trains actually did not stop moving. They moved very slowly. And that excavator would take up a scoop, it would dump it, it would come back, it would scoop and dump one in the next car, but that first car now is moving to the next excavator, so they keep filling it up. So when they get out of that area, every one of those 20-something cars are full of spoil, and now the train accelerates and off it goes, right? The other ingenious thing that we learned was that they dug from the highest point center out. And therefore, when your trains were full, they went downhill, with gravity, And then when they were empty, they came back uphill to refill again, which made it a lot faster. You used a lot less coal and had to use, less steam on the engine because you didn't have to rev it up as much. You let gravity, you pull them down. So just some brilliant stuff there. The way they emptied them, right? They had that Lidgerwood unloader, which was a gigantic plow on the back, and they hooked up a giant steam winch, and it would pull that thing, drag it all across all those cars and dump all that spoil in literally 10 minutes. That car is emptied and off they go. That entire train load is gone. So really cool, innovations that they did there. The Culebra Cut again was the biggest excavation project of all of it that was cutting through the actual Continental Divide, which, by the way, guys, real quick trivia here. The actual Continental Divide, do you know which town it goes through or near or right next to? The actual Continental Divide. The line about that point that is the divider of the continent.
On the Canal Zone side, you're talking about
Panama. Remember the Continental Divide goes across the whole isthmus.
A whole isthmus,
right? And we dug across, Colombia. We dug across, like you see in that image there. We cut across that Continental Divide. Think of it like a ridge of
I would say towards the middle. I would say Cucaracha.
No, it's a town that you've driven past many times and is still there today.
Oh, it's not underwater? It's still above?
No.
Frijoles then.
No.
Oh, you don't drive by Frijoles, actually. You got to take the train by Frijoles.
So Continental Divide, it's got to be on high ground. Think of that.
All right.
It's right in between Pedro Miguel and Paraiso.
Is that red tank place?
In that area there. In that area is where the actual Continental Divide is,
Empire.
From geological areas, something like that. No, Empire's past that stuff. But anyhow,
I quit.
That's neither here nor there. But so anyway, the Culebra Cut is where they started. And again, they would take stuff out to the Gatun Dam site, to Naus, to the water break out there to build that breakwater, which would prevent, the Pacific side from caving in all the time. And then, of course, Balboa town site. Those were the three main areas where you needed spoil. It wasn't just an area that would be convenient. You actually needed to do it there. And each one had its own purpose. Right? The Gatun Dam, if you ever think about when you're out at the beach and you're playing with sand, you're going to build your little sand castle and the water's coming in, and you build your little wall there and the water goes all the way around it, right? And so it's like, oh my God, it never stops. That's the way the Chagres was in the rainy season. That flooded so much that, you can have a little dam that's your conventional dam that's 400 or 500 feet wide. That water's going to go way around that. So they actually built the earthen foundation for it is a mile long. It's a half a mile wide, right? And you think about how much dirt that is that you're just dumping there to create this, right? You look at for example, it'd be interesting to see how long Ancon Hill is from end to end, right? And see how much that is. If that's a mile, that's probably closer to 2 miles. But that'll kind of give you an idea of how big the actual Gatun earthen dam is. The little piece you see on top where all the water comes down the spillway, that's just a very, very small piece at the top of the dam. But all the other stuff was way below the water. And that's what was being dug out from Culebra that we're putting on those trains, constantly dumping there. That was a high priority. The other one, of course, like we said, was Naus, because we needed that breakwater for the Pacific currents, right? Because otherwise that entrance to the Pacific side of the canal would never stay clear. You would always have washout there. So we had to dump a lot there. But probably one of the bigger ones then was the creating of the Balboa area, right? That whole area was over 500 acres of swampland that had to be raised quite a bit and become everything from Albrook to Balboa to Ancon to La Boca to a lot of these areas here was all swamp that had to be filled in. So also all the heavy equipment used to build the canal came from, yes, it did. 100%. Bucyrus had their big factory in Milwaukee, 100%. In fact, they're owned now by Caterpillar, but if you go to the Caterpillar website, there's a section there on Bucyrus, and there's a really, really cool, super high quality video of the Bucyrus steam shovels working in the Panama Canal. It's an awesome video that's part of that Bucyrus Museum collection there. Samurai on a steam locomotive, April 25th, 1860, a day race. Yes, there you go. There you go, Ricky. That's who he was just talking about. Oh, right on.
Oh, I got that from him, from his Instagram account.
Absolutely. So anyway, the Culebra Cut was an 8.75 mile stretch through the Continental Divide that had 160 dirt trains a day going in and out of there, dumping dirt and coming back and filling up again and moving back. And again, that's what built these massive, massive areas there to support the canal and the canal zone in general. So Thomas Grimison was a conductor on the spoil train. That's awesome. You know, I did a thing on with Notebook LM has a really cool feature that it'll create an audio overview for you. And I had it do one for me, and I told it to describe, you know, a journey from Culebra all the way to Balboa to dump and come back. And it was just a really cool thing because you really kind of felt like you were riding on the train, you know, and experiencing what they were doing, going uphill, downhill here, and all that stuff. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun, but that's cool, man. You guys, the Grimsons have some amazing Canal Zone lineage there, man. That's awesome. Good for you guys, man. Appreciate you sharing that. So again, the history of the yellow fever and the disease. Okay, miasma is what they called it, the miasma theory. Didn't the Continental Guide go through Summit? In some parts, it did. It actually was kind of very curvy, but I saw a map where it juts through there, and then yes, it turns up north and goes up through the Summit area as well. Yes, because if you think about it, guys, Pedro Miguel and Paraiso, not that far past that was the gun club, and then the railroad bridge, and then the turn in to go to Summit. So they're fairly close by. But yes, that is the general area where that Continental Divide goes through. But anyway, miasma is a theory that disease is caused by bad air. It's just so bizarre to think that way, that's what they believe, that bad air was causing it, you know. And so they dismissed a lot of the mosquito eradication. They said that they're not going to do that. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. You know, I remember Gorgas wanted to take everybody in the zone and get everybody to start filling in swamps and standing water everywhere, man. He's like, I don't care about anything else you're doing. We got to start doing this. And a lot of them didn't believe that. So they finally did. And, you know, with Gorgas, you know, and Stevens finally backing him. And it really did make a difference, you know, not just in saving lives and stuff and having to replace people, but it became easier to recruit people when you realized, hey, guess what? We're not dying.
You're not going to die, right?
Yeah. So it made it awesome. Big benefit to Panama, right? I've said this before that Panama, you know, talk about being at the right place at the right time. You know, because of this need to eradicate mosquitoes, and mosquitoes don't respect borders, you had to clean up Panama as well. So here goes a country that just started, and in 2 years now they've got a modern city. They've got the protection of a big superpower next to them, and you know, life was great in Panama for a lot of people. And you know, the Panama Canal really, as Mayor Meyer said in that Fraser interview today, that you know, Panama benefited quite a bit from the United States and what they did there. But you know, the Chagres River in 1906. This is one of the things that may have swayed these guys. To inevitably vote for that Locks Canal was in December. They had a major flood. Okay, a major flood on the Chagres. And if anything else, it got people to recognize the power of that river and how much water that river actually moves. You know, and if you can somehow contain that water, you make a resource for you as opposed to a problem. And that's what they eventually did. But they had a and again, I'm not sure the math there, 1.26 times 10 to the 25th or 95th power. It's just some massive amounts of water, but it ended up creating a massive dam that we use to power the canal. It's incredible to think for 100 years, this mega structure of the Panama Canal is powered by water. It's powered by nothing but water. It's absolutely a genius way of doing it. You know, it's fantastic. This is interesting, Ricky, and you'll appreciate this because it'll kind of piggyback off of what you were talking about earlier this month, right? Regarding architecture in the Tivoli. Mm-hmm. So in 1906, Roosevelt arrives, okay?
November.
And I think part of it was because he's like, hey, man, if you're making us do all these changes, and you made me stop building this canal for a while and invest in all this stuff, I'm going to see what the hell's going on here. So he made a trip down there, which, of course, as we learned, Stevens then had to halt everything. Oh, you guys get over there and start building a hotel. Hurry up, too. And so they did. They built the Tivoli in very, very fast time.
14 months.
Yep. Again, Roosevelt, that was a milestone. First president to travel outside U.S. territory. And apparently it says here that he bypassed diplomatic protocols to stay at the newly constructed wood frame Tivoli Hotel in Ancon. So apparently that was a no-no in presidential protocols to do that. I'm not sure what the actual protocol was, but you know,
I think they had to stay. This is why it was a big issue, because they had to stay in like the host countries, you know, hotels, so to speak, or government homes and stuff like that.
Interesting. Okay.
And they chose not to.
Right. Now, here's another thing interesting about Roosevelt. And this is, again, somebody that, you know, hey, I want to make sure my money is being spent right. Okay. My money being America's money. And so he did a lot of hands-on inspections. 12 and 18 hours a day in the rain because he went down in November. And you guys know the rainy season ends in November, and that's when there's a downpour like crazy. And he went there. He would go he ate at unannounced at the workers' cafeterias to make sure they were serving him proper food.
At the Grimacon's Richard's Wise grandparents' house.
Yes, that's right.
Hosted
Remember
him.
that. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So he walked through the housing to verify that the sanitary screens were being used and being put up. So, I mean, he didn't just go down there and make it just a presidential trip per se, make it a photo op. He went down there to make sure that everything's working. He goes, we've been doing this for 2 years now. I gotta see what's going on here. And we're spending a lot of money. Let's see what we have here. So the result of the visit, they neutralized domestic political criticism because domestic being back at home in the U.S., getting a lot of criticism because they're not seeing progress in this canal. And so he had to go down there and see what's going on, come back home and say, hey, look, things are working great, man. We're on track now. Things are going to go really well. So again, guys, the master blueprint then for these guys now to go into this next 10-year or 8-year phase of building this massive Panama Canal, because we're still early at this stage here, was the public health, get rid of those diseases, the industrial logistics, being able to move everything and keep that whole machine, flowing. And then, unfortunately, the labor part, and this is where things did get a little bit ugly, and it's historical, it's reality, right? It was not something we're going to shy away from, not necessarily something we're proud of, but it was the times, right? In the world that we lived in. But the segregation actually, they kind of reinforced some of those things in 1906. They actually took a lot of gold roll employees that were skilled but weren't white Americans, and they took them off the gold rolls. Right. And they made them go on to silver roll. So, that is one of those areas where, we're not rah, hey, great job. It's a reality. We'll talk about it. It is what it is, but it is part of our canal zone, history and what happened there. But all of those things at the end of the day were for the reason of building this canal and being able to pull it off and make sure that they were successful with it. So, a couple of interesting things here. They finally, put in their bids to go with lake or sea level canal. They finally took till June 29th to finally adopt something like that. So again, 6 months. And that was part of that bureaucratic problem, is anytime you ask for something, well, we got to talk about it. We got to have meetings about it. We got to decide this and that. You have a study. And by the time they figure it out, it's too late. They don't need that anymore. Right. Or it's already bypassed that, or the floodwaters already came and washed everything out. So, changed a lot of that. And then towards the end of the years, when they really started seeing, the sanitation efforts pay off and the numbers plummeted for the diseases and stuff. And now you really could forecast better planning for the job and what you're going to need and so forth. So, so in December 1st, they finally submitted their report, and actually things were going really well. This was a really good time for them. Goethals had finally come in. The second half of 1906 was Goethals, taking over, and that's when things really went into high gear because, this guy, remember, Stevens and Wallace were civilians. They were hired. They were basically recruited. They had to be offered a lot of money. And when Stevens resigned, that one really irked Roosevelt. Wallace was okay because a lot of things weren't happening. He didn't have a lot of fans in Washington. But Stevens, on the other hand, when he abruptly resigned, Roosevelt was pissed. He was very angry. He made sure that the next engineer was military, so they couldn't resign. They were assigned to that post. And so he selected, Goethals, and the rest is history, But that's really kind of what 1906 was like. It was an interesting year in that it was a time to really get the American canal operation going, right? Like I said, the 1904 was a discovery year, right? It was an eye-opening year.
It's like paperwork, and like I mentioned, they brought a whole bunch of architects to.
It was shock and awe, is what it was. They walked in and
to document everything.
Yes, figure out what you have to work with, what you're gonna need. And then they come in and say, okay, we got some good stuff. Let's start working. And then realize, wait a minute, we really don't have what we need. The plan is a good one. I like it, but the equipment is not the right one. And 1906 is when they went into full gear. And this is why Teddy Roosevelt went down there. He's like, man, y'all just put in an order for, 200 locomotives, man. Where's this money going? I want to see what's going on here. And he went back home quite happy. The natives up home in Washington stopped being so restless. And that's when the canal really became a machine. It's something that really showed that American
A
ingenuity.
well-funded machine.
Yes, yes, 100%. So that worked out really well for them. We were talking about the Culebra cut, and something else that's interesting about that. You know, Andrew Eftimitis is working on a project in Panama for a museum that's about the construction of the canal as well as defense of the canal. And I mean, you talk about a project of passion, because he's doing this a lot himself, right? And he's right now he's self-funding a lot of it. He's hoping obviously to get help to get, to really kick it off and get it into high gear. But he's doing a wonderful job. And Ricky and I have been, fortunate enough to be privy to what he's working on, showing us a lot of things. We've been helping him out with some things here and there with some people that we know, and some graphics work and all that. But it's really cool to see the model he's building, because he's building a model of Culebra.
Yeah, and it gives you that the depth of it, and
yes,
the,
totally,
and the size of it, the scale of it. Yes.
Yeah, you are totally present there on it, when you see what he does there, and you appreciate the amount of work that was involved, right? In digging through that continental divide, right? You're digging through a mountain, okay? You think about how long it took, to build some rail lines up here in the United States in the Northwest through all those mountains, and you're talking years to just build a tunnel, right? And here we're cutting an entire canal through this area, so it was a monumental task. And the Culebra one is obviously one of the bigger projects, and the more monumental ones. So I was gonna, kind of cover a little bit of that, because it'll kind of piggyback off of what Andrew's doing, and help get that, to that next level, because he's having some really productive talks with some people in Panama and looking at some locations for it, including like the YMCA perhaps, and other places.
Some buildings in Amador.
The Amador, where the old Amador movie theater was.
La Boca. How about that one spot in La Boca?
Yeah. So, but anyhow, it's more to come with Andrew on that project, but we're excited about it. But anyhow, so. We're going to fast forward a little bit to 1908, because this is a good time to see where now the Culebra cut was in full swing. The canal operation, they pretty much had done away with whatever French equipment they weren't going to use. It was now a full American operation. And so, the central division was the Culebra area, right? You had the Atlantic division, you had the Pacific division, and then you had the central division. And so in that area, you broke it up into some districts. You had the Pedro Miguel district, which is on the one end of the Culebra, which is the entrance from Pacific. And then, Baso Obispo, that area was where you would come in. Now it's where you come in off the lake and you start turning into the Culebra cut from there. So those were the different districts they broke it up with. They had some issues with water control, as we were talking about. They actually had 2 diversion channels on either side of the canal that were pretty substantial. They were almost like little mini canals, just to drive water out, because they kept wanting to flow down into that, into all their digging there. So that was another one that we don't even pay attention or know, but they actually had 2 big ditches on either side of the canal, almost going the entire length of that Culebra area, just to divert water, because it was such a problem for them nonstop. The other one that I find fascinating is, in order to do all that excavating, you're going through rock, right? In order to get that rock broken up, you have to blow it up with dynamite. Well, you can't put dynamite on top of the surface and have it blow a hole in there. You got to dig down inside. You got to drill inside. And what they used to drill was air compressors. And they had these air drills. And they had 14 miles of compressed air running all the length of that whole area there, that they could plug in all these air drills. And you see them, they look like these tall poles. They're lined up like 10 in a line, and they're, and they're just digging down deep holes to then shove dynamite to be able to blow it up and then excavate it out. But I just thought it was interesting that in 1904, 1906, 1908, you had 14 miles of compressed air lines running through the length of that area, and again, contributing to that noise, to that chaos, to that mayhem.
I know. Plus all the buildings that were, like we talked about last week, all the buildings going up at that time as well.
Absolutely. Something interesting that I learned also in all of this stuff, talk about the air pressure, and you got your steam engines, and you got loco, you got all this noise, right? And we talked about a little bit last month, how they relied a lot on hand signals and stuff for the locomotives and the rail and stuff to work. And one of the things that they had, when they got rid of all the disease, they started having a lot of deaths from accidents in the canal itself, and a lot of them were rail accidents. And what I learned was that you take quinine for malaria, right? Well, one of the side effects of taking too much quinine is you lose your hearing. And of course, they didn't even know that at the time. So you got all these people that are just consuming, just gallons of quinine to mitigate the yellow fever, the malaria, and they're losing their hearing. And so they don't hear a train coming down the track, and they're getting killed by these, a lot of rail accidents simply because people never heard it coming. They never heard a whistle. They never heard any of the noise on there. So I thought that was kind of a strange side effect of, you cure a disease with a medicine that now causes something else. But, the safety drilling, they had this was a big deal. They had one catastrophic explosion in 1905, I believe it was, that killed a bunch of people. And these things went off instantaneously. They weren't supposed to, right? So they had a lot of safety features. They had something called a galvanometer. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that would ensure that every charge went off correctly, right? One of the things that they put into play was, in order to pack the dynamite, they had to provide wooden dowels so that you wouldn't have anything with metal accidentally spark as it's hitting.
Correct. Yes.
Set them off. So just little details like that, where all of a sudden you put an order and I need 10,000 of these wooden rods for what? To pack dynamite, because otherwise you cause an accident, but it was the little tiny things that made the whole difference in the world, And then this is kind of a model of what you're talking about as far as that excavation goes and how they did it. Right. What they would do is they start with the channel at the bottom. They actually dig their way up as opposed to digging their way down. Right. You started in the middle, you dug a channel there, you started digging that out, and you'd go out wide enough in that step and you go up to the next level. Right. Of course, in each one of those levels, you did it wide enough initially to have another train there, another one up on each level. But that's where you had those 160 rail cars a day or trains a day running in and out of there, because you had them all on terraces and they go downhill to Balboa to Gatun, drop their spoil off and come back up there and route their way around. Right. Remember last month we talked about those Y triangles, where the train would go in, it would back out the other triangle and turn around and go back the other way. And you had all the rail cars back on there, quick turnaround, quick load and move. And, just absolutely fascinating. Here's some of the machines that they used in that area there that they ordered after 1906. You had the light ones, which is kind of interesting to think that a light one is still 45 tons, right? That's 90,000 pounds. That's incredible. Their capacity is 1.7 cubic yards, which is a lot. A cubic yard is a lot of dirt. Okay. Medium ones were 70 ton. Those were the Bucyrus and the Marion excavators. And then the heavy ones were, again, the big 95 ton ones. John Frank Stevens appointed chief engineer in 1905. Stevens had just served as the vice president of Chicago. Yes, he was a rail guy. When he arrived there, he realized, hey, this isn't a construction project. This isn't an excavation project. It's a rail project. Because all the problems with the rail, we couldn't move stuff quickly enough. We had steam engines sitting there. Think about this, guys, when it comes to a steam engine. Unlike a car, you can't turn it off to save gas, right? A steam engine works on a boiler that's got a fire going. So once you get that fire going and that steam going, you got to use it. Because once you stop, you got to let all that steam go out, and then you got to relight the fires again, and that takes a long time. So yeah, they had to have things moving quick. You didn't want a steam engine sitting there idle for 2 hours, because you're burning fuel. You're burning a lot of fuel, and so that was one of the big problems there. But yes, they absolutely he absolutely did. He was a rail guy through and through, and if it wasn't for him prioritizing this as a rail project, we don't have the canal. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So 50 to 65 shovels active simultaneously in the Culebra Cut. That's pretty amazing, guys. That's a lot of work going on there. And I'm going to show you something really fascinating here about this machine that, believe it or not, was going 24 hours a day. They weren't digging at night, but they were working at night. They had to keep this machine ready to go, right? And so they basically had, at this point in time, the bulk of the Pacific area was getting filled in, Miraflores for those dams there, because they had a secondary dam there. And then, of course, up in Tabernilla, you had some dumping there. This is on that Pacific side. You had the same thing going on the Atlantic side with certainly Gatun being the priority there. But this is really cool here, these night operations. Okay. So the Lirio coal train routing, what they called. Okay. Every evening, coal trains enter the cut to spot cars of soft coal directly next to the steam shovels, right? The steam shovel are turned off. These guys have gone home for the day. This is where it's parked. They pull up these trains full of coal, and these guys shovel out 18 shovels are serviced by a single train every night. 18 of those steam shovels every night with 40 to 50 tons of coal, and it's wheelbarrowed at night, right? They unload it in that area, then they start wheelbarrowing it to those steam shovels to start loading them in there. It's quite a process, guys. They didn't just go dump coal and drive off to the next one, right? The guys that came in the morning, they're not going to come in there and start getting this thing set up. They're going to get in there to have this thing fired up and start digging, right? And so this is the really cool piece of that operation. The objective here was to ensure the shovels are fully fueled and never stop digging during daylight hours. Okay? And that's part of that process. So they go into a little bit of detail here, which is really fascinating to me, is, they had these guys, these hustlers, which would take command of these locomotives in the evening shifts, okay? Because not only were you supplying coal, but guess what? Remember, these trains are running all day long, running 160 trains. So you got to keep these guys running as well. So this engine would run through a coal chute at night. It would fill up this coal, fill up the sand, which is part of what they use. And sand is used on rail, guys. Sand is dumped on the wheels to give you traction because metal on metal tends to be slippery. When you're going uphill, for example, especially if it started raining a little bit, you pull a lever in your train and it dumps sand right in front of the wheels. So that the sand on the track, it gives a little bit of grip. So you had to keep refilling the sand on that train every night. You had to put the coal in there. You had to put the water for the boiler to get it to steam up, right? You had to reset all of those things there. And then guess what? At 5 o'clock in the morning, you had people to go in there and they would start the fires. They would get those things the boilers to start getting up the temperature, water boiling, steam pressure build up. So these guys show up there at 6:30 and guess what? Off they go. And that machine is now working, which again is why you don't want to stop and wait 2 hours for an empty train to come and start filling it, because you got a boiler running, right? It's not a car engine you turn off. That thing is, the machine is running the whole time. You don't want to waste all that coal with something that's burning it and not being productive with it. So it was just really cool. You don't think about this night operation often. You think about everything they did during the day, but not what they did at night, right? So this is kind of that 24-hour matrix that made this machine possible. They got a canal built in 10 years versus 20 years like the French had thought of. But, during day operations from 6:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., the primary objective was to shatter, dig, and remove, right? Blow up the rock, dig it out of there, put it on a train, and get it the heck out of there, right? The night operations, their primary objective was to fuel, repair, and reset. So the next morning, you can keep doing it again, right? So that all 65 machines are doing their part to dig it out and keep moving it as much as possible. So during the day, your key personnel were your shovel men, your powder gangs, your train crews, right? Your shovel men were the ones working with that Bucyrus steam shovel, keeping that coal going in there, keep that boiler going. The operators working that thing. You got your guys on the powder gangs, which are working with the dynamite, keep blowing stuff up to keep having rubble to have it removed, right? And then you got your train crews that are moving that stuff constantly. At night, you had your hostlers that are moving the locomotives. You had your coal crews that are filling all the stations where the Bucyrus steam shovels are. And you had your mechanics doing any repairs on locomotives, on steam shovels and stuff, and make sure that next morning everything is running smoothly. And that's what made this such an efficient operation, which is probably why Gothel's, and to a certain extent, Stevens even being that railroad guy, why they were effective for this. Right? Because it was very much a military operation where everything has its moving part, its benefit, its cost benefit. And that really was that unbreakable loop, right? You had your drilling, you had your shattering, you had your loading it, you had your removing it, and you had your night crew to keep everything flowing and efficiently. So 1908, October, some quick numbers here. Active steam shovels in Central Division, 50 to 65, just in Central Division. Remember, you're still digging on the Atlantic side. You're still digging on the Pacific side as well. These are just the guys doing Culebra. All right. Average daily labor force, 8,000 to 9,000 people working in Culebra Cut on average out there. And the explosives consumed monthly 600,000 pounds of dynamite was used every month to keep blowing stuff up and keep moving that dirt, man. So it was quite an accomplishment. Really, really interesting stuff there. But again, guys, it was just, 1906 was that year of transition.
Construction. A lot of construction.
Yes, you're establishing the operation now, 100%. You're absolutely right. And that's what it became, so that we could then have a really, really successful, 8 or 9 year stretch of great operation. So, but anyhow, guys, that was, it was a lot of fun, little drawn out there, but I'm a big fan of this whole Panama Canal construction and the
Construction,
excavation.
yeah, and of soccer. So, plus, Willie, you've been wanting to do the soccer segment for a long time. I'm glad we got it done, and it went well. It went very well, man. You guys were great,
and he was awesome.
We learned a lot about soccer and the World Cup. I hope a lot of people will tune in and watch some games.
Yes. And I love the EFY fans too, by the way. Don't take it the other way. I want you guys to opine as well. But just understand, don't be so doom and gloom. Soccer, there's small wins that are big wins, actually, and
that's sports. When you lose in sports, you're always gonna complain for 2-3 days.
Yeah,
just watch when the Niners lose. You'll know when the Niners lose that week.
Yeah, so listen, because Rick and I are on Sunday nights doing show prep, and I hear about it all the time. Trust me.
Yeah, I can't even think straight when the Niners lose, man.
Anyhow, listen, guys, great show.
There's our Shiva,
yeah, there's our Chiva. So next week, get ready for some trivia, guys. Bone up on your CZ history, because we got some trivia. It's gonna be a lot of fun there. Akira, good morning to you. Thank you. We're gonna see Japan here play in just a little while. Enjoy it. Take care, Ricky. Get us out of here, man.
Thank you, guys, again from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you so much. We love you. See you next week.
See ya.